Hello, Legionnaires, and welcome to episode 109 of RPG Digest. In this live stream formatted podcast, we provide deep dives, fundamentals, and overviews of tabletop role-playing games, and we comment on the tabletop RPG hobby as a whole. I am John Maxley Auschlow, your favorite curmudgeon, critic, and judge, maybe an executioner finally again today, if I get lucky. Unfortunately, Heathen Dog is unable to be with us today, but him and his family are in our thoughts. So it's just going to be myself and our special guest, which I will bring in here in just a moment. So we'll say hello to you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, first. And who we have here? We have Elle. Elle's commenting like 3 hours ago. Somebody's been waiting for this. That's good stuff right there. Hello, Kevin Sullivan. How you doing today? Nerdy Ogres here. Shadow and Sun. Yes, we will take questions from chat. I do have a list of questions already. However, here, how about this? How about if I just jump into this? Because I don't want to keep our guests waiting too long here. Hello to everybody in chat, though. CBK Ply, Raven's Lair, One-Legged Frog, good to see you. Crafty, you said he couldn't be here. Apparently he snuck in. Have you tithed today, everybody? Have you tithed? Get this out the screen for just a second here. I'm not used to doing half a screen here. There we go. Now I can have a full screen. Hey, now I know what's going on. All right, so a couple things that I want to say about today. First of all, be respectful. If you want to attack me, that's fine. Don't attack our guest. I know he can take it, but you know what? Let's pretend like we're reasonable people here for once. Can we try that? Just wondering. Go after me, not him. Dissent is okay. Disrespect, no. I'm not even. I won't even read super chats if they're disrespectful. But with that said, if you've got something that's really irking you or something that's really on your mind, or if you love something, like, I gotta get this out, gotta say how much I love something, by all means, please do so. I will monitor chat, but I make no guarantees as far as questions. That's like for you, Shadow and Sun. I know you said that you might want to put some questions in there because I want everybody to understand this is more of a conversation, less of an interview. Yes, I have questions. They're set up over there on my screen. You guys on Discord loaded me up with a ton of questions, but I want to treat this more like a conversation, like we did with Kevin when he was here, and like we did with Mark McKinnon when he was here in the past, and like we've done with Grim, you know. So anyway, super chats will be read, again, if they're not disrespectful, but I'm not going to interrupt the conversation for them. Just know I'll star them, and I will get back to them. So anything else I want to? Yep, I have to go through the proclivities. I'll do that real quickly, and then just so everybody knows, no matter what you hear, no matter what comes out of our mouths, no matter what comes out of chat, no matter how many times that Sean punches me in the face, he's not that close, thank God. Everything we do here is from a position of love for Palladium. We absolutely, this is why we have the year of Palladium books this year, is because Heathen Dog and I, which it's unfortunate Heathen Dog can't be here, but we're huge fans of Palladium. And so anything that we talk about, our loves, our dislikes, whatever, comes from a place of actual enjoyment for Palladium. All right, before I hit the proclivities, wow, I can't even say the word now. Thank you, Matt Barninger, for the $1.99. Do appreciate that. I guess that's a tablet, right? When it's the $1.99. I know Man of War does actually 665 every time he does a super chat. I kind of like that. Weird Guy says, I'll be respectful. But if your dice roll a 1 for me, it's getting thrown across the room. Just managing expectations. All right. All right, let me quickly go through the proclivities. And thank you, Weird Guy, for the $10. Really do appreciate that. Let's hit the proclivities because I don't like to keep people waiting, but I've got to do this because there are things that you need to know beforehand and things that I've got to get off my chest. so I can ignore that. Let's start right here. Want to thank all of you wonderful people who help us through donations, tips, memberships, and already the super chat. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. And of course, the tithes. That's right, Crafty. I did see that you tithe today. Thank you very much. The Pope of the Legion. You're going to be the vicar. You're going to be the Legionist vicar. How about that? Your support helps us to provide giveaways, produce more content, and generally give back to Legion Myth community as a whole. As you guys know, we like to do the giveaway stuff, probably too much so for Heathen Dog's taste, but hey. And of course, we cannot ignore you crazy rascals who subscribe to Legion of Myth and hang out with us in our chat during these live streams, not screams. We don't scream on here, we live stream. But whether you're chat or lurker, we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national, nonpartisan organization whose mission it is to honor and empower wounded warriors. The Wounded Warrior Project exists to raise awareness and to enlist the public's aid for the needs of injured service members, to help injured service members aid and assist each other, and to provide unique programs and services to meet the needs for wounded warriors free of charge. Please refer to the description below for the link, or you can use that little QR code that's right there where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. I say hopefully because if I'm wrong, somebody will try to sue me. I know how you people are. If you refer to the description below, you can find links to our various Legion Myth sites, our social media. I completely forgot to advertise this on Facebook. See, I'm horrible at social media, guys. Horrible with social media. Anyway, Discord, merch, you can buy a Legion Myth shirt. Some are family friendly even, etc. Please check those out. Join us and enjoy the swag. Finally, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to Legion of Myth. Those actions help the channel immensely if you have not done so already. And of course, join us on Thursdays, Saturday evenings for Twitch, yada, 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 on Fridays and Sundays for what you're watching now. And lastly, you guys pretty much know where we are, right? Just go to YouTube. You'll figure it out. All right. Finally, #RPGate. We believe that role-playing games should take place in fantastic worlds, and we're going to be talking about a lot of fantastic worlds today. I guarantee that. And the focus of your tabletop group should be on role-playing and having a good time. Core values of #RPGate and any good tabletop group are escapism, not representation, entertainment over activism, and natural, organic inclusion, not forced diversity. Whew. All right, got all that out of the way, so let's welcome our special guest today, Sean Owen Roberson of Palladium Books and Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Let me get that off the screen. There we go. All right, how are you today, sir? Oh, I think you're still muted. Got the little mute. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, I just want to make sure I wasn't burping or something as soon as things started, but there we go.
I have a condition called misophonia. I'll probably stab a cat if you do that.
I'm sorry, Heathen Dog's not here. I was looking forward to the conversation with both of y'all.
Yeah, well, and for me, this puts me in kind of a spot because he's definitely the riffs guy. I'm not. So like not all, but a lot of the riff stuff was going to come from him where he could be like, yep, okay, that's cooler. No. Where I'm going to sit here and be like, wow, so you're doing stuff with riffs. That's great. What about After the Bomb and Robotech? Oh, wait, you don't have Robotech anymore.
I was always a big Robotech fan, still am. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess we'll just have to rely on chat. So chat, if you guys would do me the favor of I told this to Max Leal. I said, don't softball anything. As long as
don't say that to my chat. I'm telling you, my chat is crazy. They will say things.
Ask whatever you want to ask. Honestly, ask whatever you want to ask. It doesn't mean I'll answer it. I did work at the NSA, so I'm good at not answering questions if I want to. But yeah.
I work for DISA, so I'm good at answering questions very incorrectly.
Oh, there we go. It's like the same thing sometimes.
Right. So first of all, before we start the conversation, just real quickly, if you could, obviously tell people who you are and what your role is with Palladium Books, and if you want to, with Pinnacle Entertainment Group as well.
Sure, yeah. My name is Sean Owen Roberson. Each one of those words is spelled a little differently than people would expect. It's SeanOwen with no S, and Roberson, Roberson.
I've been saying your name right. Everybody corrected me. I kept saying amazing. Robertson. There it gets Roberson. I'm like, okay, fine.
My family, I've met families that say Roberson, but my family, anyone, it's weird. If my family meets another Robertson family, my dad had this knack of being able to do it. He would always be like, "Wait, is your third cousin?" And like he would find the familial connection. It was amazing.
There's a general officer I worked for when I worked for the Marines. names that went by Robertson, and it blew me because I knew a couple Robertsons growing up,
Right.
and so but I got it trained out of me to stop saying that. So when we were inviting you on, everybody's like, you got to say his name right, like it's Robertson, it's Robertson. So I was practicing to say Robertson.
No, it's so my family line is so there's Robertson clan in Scotland, right? And there's a sub clan is the Robertsons there, and that's my heritage. So
awesome. And what is it that you do for Palladium? Like I said, and if you want to talk about your time at Pinnacle as well, just so everybody knows kind of what your role is.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, we can talk about my gaming experiences and stuff later too,
Absolutely.
and stuff. But so I don't know. I'll start with, I guess, the like, I'll go more chronologically. Hopefully that'll help people.
Okay.
But yeah, after I got out of I was in the Air Force. After I got out of the military, yay, Air Force. I stole the job you wanted, so
yeah. Well, there's stories behind that.
we can talk about that if you want. But yeah, I was a Chinese analyst, Chinese linguist in the Air Force, and so I after the Air Force, and I did some stupid jobs and stuff, and then my best friend was like, Sean, go back to school using the GI Bill. You're an idiot, and I was, so I did, and one of the things I really got into was, surprisingly enough, I was taking graphic design classes for fun. And
that's funny. That's what my job in the Air Force was.
Right. And I noticed you've got great graphics, but yeah, so I just started taking things for fun while I was actually working towards doing mathematics. Probably going to go into, I'm from Houston. I was probably I was thinking, oh, I'll just go do petroleum engineering or something that pays a lot of bucks. And one of my professors was like, no, you have a talent here with layout. And I was like, really? And he was like, look, long story short, I ended up going to the University of Texas in Dallas for a full bachelor's degree. And I was focused on design and production, and took all the stuff I could for games and video games. And the program was designed for video games and movies. And so, being in a more of the producer type role type thing. But I took all the tabletop games classes I could, design classes I could, writing classes I could. Had a really great professor who had worked on AD&D. He's Michael Bro. He was I think the top guy, the editor or whatever on Oriental Adventures on AD&D. And then he designed other stuff, including he worked on Hero Quest expansions. Last thing he ended up working on the video game sphere was Elder Scrolls Online. But he was a great writer, amazing, right? And at that time, I just started going to conventions in Houston because I wanted to, for gaming conventions. And I ran into Shane Hensley at the Alcon at Rice University. And I was a fan of Savage Worlds. I was also a fan of the Army of Darkness role-playing game, which he also wrote. I
don't think I heard of that one. I mean, I know the movie, of course, but I don't remember there being a role-playing game.
It was the cinematic unit system that people might know. CJ Corella worked on it, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer one. And it was the same core system as the Buffy the Vampire Slayer RPG. My sister, my family, we all watched Buffy together. Like my parents, my siblings, that was like our thing for a long time. So anyways, I was playing in one of his Savage Worlds games, and he found out that I was studying game design with one of the other guys that works on East Texas University, his son. And so they were like, oh, come out, have some drinks with us afterwards. And then we were all chatting, and they found out, that was, my big focus, and I was really into it. He said, you need to come to the ChupacabraCon in Round Rock, Texas, near Austin. And so I did that. And then I ran into Sean Fannin, who was, and I didn't find Savage Rifts, it had come out while I was busy going back to school. And I discovered it after the Kickstarter had ended, and I was like, what? This is a thing? And, my buddies didn't have the time. We used to play Palladium all weekend long, all summer long. And, but now they're like, yeah, we got 4 hours total. If we catch up or chat at all, that's really 3 hours. And so we found, that's how I found Savage Worlds, was trying to find something we could run really quick games with. And fast, furious fun, right? And it worked for me. I bought everything for freaking Steve Jackson Games, the what is it called, GURPS. And I was just like, oh, this is too crunchy, it's not fast enough, but anyways, so anyhow, I was really excited to meet the guy that was had designed the Savage Rift stuff, and I had enjoyed a campaign using it with my buddies. And so we talked. I ended up sending him some of my writing samples, and I had a lot at that point. Yeah, they asked me to write an adventure and see if it was any good. And I sent them the adventure. They paid me. It's never been published. And then Shane reached out and asked me if I would write the Coalition book for Savage Rifts. And that ended up becoming Empires of Humanity, which was the first book that I worked on. And it was before I even graduated. So I was like, this is pretty awesome. And it just kind of flowed from there. And then there were a couple other books that were being worked on by other authors at the same time. Sean and Robin Bircher were the leads on those books. And then we did a big Kickstarter because the new Savage Worlds Adventure Edition was coming up. And Shane, he made the painful decision of, do we do another edition really quickly? It's only been like 3 years since the original Kickstarter had launched. And he made the decision, you know what, let's make Rifts kind of like the flagship, right? It'll be the first thing that gets updated, the first product line that gets updated to the new adventure edition. And so when we did that Kickstarter, that's why, for instance, if anyone doesn't know it, if you went and you bought, say, all the first edition Savage Rifts material, all the books, you can contact Pinnacle Entertainment Group online, and they will send you the PDFs of the new edition for free.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was one of those things where it's just a tough decision, but I think in the end it was the good long-term decision. And then I did a 3-month playtest and feedback period on that to really dial in the Rifts. I'm a big Rifts lore, hardcore kind of guy. And they'd already gotten me involved in doing art approvals. And so I would talk to Kevin about the art and, what he thought it should look like. And obviously, if he didn't like something, we would also be changing that for sure. But it was, it was about making sure that it all hewed to his vision for Rifts as much as possible. I mean, it's very different game systems, right?
Right. Well, and I know people on my Discord have thoughts about that. That's for sure.
Right. No, it was funny. I was talking to him about this, but let me get through this real quick. And I do have a comment there. If we can come back to that later, if you can remember, circle back. But,
I've got plenty of them written down. We'll be coming back to that.
Good. If that's one on the list, then we'll get to that when it happens. But anyway, so yeah, I took over. So basically I was in charge of the second edition update for Rifts for Savage Worlds. And then I wrote Atlantis and the Demon Seas, which is the second Kickstarter that I did. And I wrote that cover to cover, did the art direction. So the only thing that I didn't do is paint the pretty pictures, and, had great proofreaders and playtesters and stuff like that. But, long story short, I was going to start my own game company. I was figuring, hey, if you really want to get ahead, you got to own what you're selling, right? And although, I will say Shane has been very great to work with and has done well by me. At the same time, it was, I really wanted I have some ideas of my own. I have settings that I want to write, right? And so I was planning on moving overseas and using that cost savings to bootstrap art, the stuff that I can't do, right? I can do all the layout, I can do the writing and design. And yeah, Kevin, I was using Kevin as my sounding board for all my ideas. And then one day, and yeah, it was great. We become friends. And because he learned, I guess, I learned a lot from him. And, he realized that I was going to make sure that whatever we did with Pinnacle was going to stay as true to the Palladium Rift stuff as possible. And so that's why, for instance, we were able to do the pawn sets for Savage Rifts. We're able to do the virtual tabletop support for Savage Rifts, is because Kevin had grown to respect and trust the Pinnacle team, and it was great. He's been great to work with, by the way. And then he just was kind of surprised me and said, "Hey, Sean, I know you're planning to move overseas, but what about Palladium? I don't have
Michigan's kind of overseas.
Sell the company." And that's the thing, right? I ended up moving from Houston all the way across the country up to Michigan. I mean, that's pretty far.
Well, it's funny. I don't know if you heard about this, but like Heathen Dog is from the city he's from Westland. So
he's from Westland. Okay, yeah.
He's from there. So he owes Kevin some time to go out there and check out and me the Palladium. I'm unfortunately down here in Alabama, so that's not just across the street from me. It's a new place for me. I tell you what, I've never been to the Southeast.
He should come by here because we've got the studio, the offices, the warehouse. We can give him the whole tour, man.
Yeah, I'm working on having him do that.
He should. That'd be great. I'd love to meet him, especially since I didn't get a chance to meet him today.
Right.
So yeah, that would be awesome. But anyways, that's kind of the long and the short of it. Kevin asked me to be his business partner. He said, obviously I'm not going to like give you half the company right away. His lawyers were like, what are you doing? Right. Um, and I'm like, wait. Are you sure you're saying what you mean, what you're saying? Right. And all this. Yeah. But actually that was earlier. That was like mid 2021, early to
Okay.
mid 2021. It was right after the Atlantis Rising Kickstarter ended. And we were, I was trying to finalize plans, right? And it was tough moving with COVID and everything, but I
Yeah.
had a way I thought I was going to get through. But anyhow, it was, yeah, I came here. It was funny. The first day I arrived in September was the first day of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program that he was invited to join, which is a
Oh,
very prestigious business program. Yeah. And so that was amazing because he was doing this crash course. It was like 30, 40 hours a week for him, just that. But for until the end of December, it was like, it's like a mini MBA smashed into one one semester basically. And
interesting.
so
Okay. I never
but it
heard
was
of it.
great. It's pretty neat. It's apparently it's pretty prestigious. At first he was like, what is this? I'd never heard of it. But apparently they take a cohort of small businesses every year and thousands of small business owners and help them level up their game and put together a 5-year plan. It's kind of the whole point, right?
Mhm.
It's putting together projections and plans and stuff like that. And so it was really great because then he could be doing that and then we could talk. We try and go on walks every day so we don't get super fat. And so we use that to talk and chat about different things or whatever's on our mind. And that keeps us from constantly talking during the day. We can focus on writing in our
Mhm.
offices respectively. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work, but anyways, we like to chat, but yeah, it was really neat because I got to learn the business from his perspective and from that professional perspective. Before I'd worked, I was in the Air Force. I had managed a Games Workshop store. I've done a bunch of different stuff, retail management and stuff for, like I managed DB Games. But if anyone remembers that, it was bought by GameStop. But yeah, so I knew kind of the customer facing thing and stock and inventory and good business practices and stuff, but I don't know the behind the scenes stuff. And I understand business owners want to keep that stuff close to the chest most of the time, but it was really great initiation for that. And I started working on Rifter 85. We decided to bring the Rifter back, and that would be my first project. And so I was basically the guest editor and did all the layout and just did the layout. So I don't know if you've used like Adobe InDesign, but
Tell you how old I am. I used PageMaker.
oh, okay. So yeah, but I mean, it was a good exercise for me because Palladium and Pinnacle are very different companies. They seem similar to a lot of people on the surface, for a bunch of different reasons, but they have very, very different processes. They have the actual core business model is very different, even though it seems like, oh, it's a universal system with lots of different settings or whatever. It's actually pretty different. Yeah, it was one of those things I kind of learned. Oh, this is how it works. And I would look at different things from, books across the years and be like, okay, what's the best way to format this or this or this for this game system and things like that. So the Rifter 85 was really good to work on. But anyways,
I own one Rifter, the only important one to have, 9.5.
right. And that's the good one.
I need my giga damage.
It's awesome. Yeah. But anyways, and then the Kevin, when he asked me to join the company, one of the things he said is, I want you to help me revitalize Palladium and, carry it forward into the next generation. And so that's where we kind of came up with creative director for my title, because
Okay.
a lot of people don't, some people get it. If you say business partner, they get it. Other people don't. Right. It's because actually it was funny. I don't know. I might have taken it anyways, but I wasn't as interested in just being like, say, a writer. Not that that's what he asked me to do in the first place, but so that's a bigger deal. And Kevin's actually been a great to work with and a business partner because he never pulls rank. He's always like open to any ideas and we can discuss things freely. And it's kind of weird. We're very in sync. I don't know if he mentioned that in his interview, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, I've never had it. He's like, oh, I had this with Wujik. It's really awesome. And I was like, I've never had this before. This is weird, right? We're from completely different generations, completely different parts of the country, but we have very similar views on things. Although we might get there to different ways. It's kind of weird, but we also game master very similarly. a lot of times I'll say, well, what would you do in this situation? This is what I would do. And then he'd be like, that's exactly what I do. Or it's just weird. But yeah, anyways, and we decided that, the Savage Worlds guys are really nice. When I told them, I was worried. I told them that Kevin had invited me to join him as his business partner at Palladium. And I didn't know what they would want to do, because
initial thoughts are probably that's a conflict of interest.
Right. Some people would think it's a conflict of interest. And so I told Shane and Simon one week, after they have a weekly meeting, and so, and I consider them friends. And they said, Sean, we are willing to do whatever it takes for you to, make the most of your opportunity. And they even offered if we wanted to consult in any capacity we might need, And so I was just like, that's really awesome. They're really great people. And, in the end, we decided that I would stay on as the line editor and line manager for Rifts for Savage Worlds, just because it's having someone that's good at, all the different things that need to be there. I don't know if I could really hand off the art approvals to someone else. It'd be really hard to find that right kind of fit. And so, yeah, we decided to do that, and developed a small Savage Rifts writing team and design team that helped me with, a lot of the new books. And so I introduced them a few weeks back ago on a Pinnacle stream. If you go to Pinnacle's YouTube channel, you can see it and meet those guys, but good people. And I'm excited to have them, as well do stuff for Palladium in the future. But yeah, that's
it's honestly funny, because I didn't realize this much so how much your background, like a lot of what you're saying about what you do in your background is like, yep, did that, yep, did that, yep, did that. Because like for me, I can't draw a stick figure to save my life. However, as far as editing goes, so part of not my current job, but the one I had when I was in Germany for 10 years, part of my job there is technical writing. So I don't think there's ever been a game book written that meets my standards, like out of any company ever, because I'm a complete perfectionist, clear, concise. Oh my God, I forgot what it is now. See, that's what happens when you don't do it. Clear, concise, accurate, and I'm forgetting one. Consistent and accurate. And consistency in gaming books drives me crazy, because and Palladium is one of the worst when it comes to that. But
yeah, I grew up with Palladium, right? And so it's I mean, this is the first game I ever owned was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Same here.
My copy. Same. So, and I think that maybe that's why I game more like Kevin than maybe other people. Is the only thing I ever read for years and years, over a decade was Kevin's, and or I guess Eric Wujcik.
Eric in that case, yeah.
Right. And the game master advice in Palladium books, right? And so that for me, that was very formative. But yeah, there's a lot of ways where we can upgrade the standards and things like that as well.
I don't know. Part of me thinks that it's just part and parcel with game, because one of the things that I noticed, so like for me, if you're to do one of those little mental tests, I'm not on the artist side at all. I'm definitely on the scientific side. Like I think that art ruins a lot of things. Unfortunately, when it comes to gaming, most gamers or most hobbyists will say are on the artistic side, because you have to have that artistic bent in order to come up with the imagination for something, say like Rifts, right? Or even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But those people don't like to conform to standards of, right? That's why I think they should be, I really do. I think these things should be separate. And I find that in my field as well. While I'm in a technical field, that's great. You're thinking outside the box, now conform. It's like, no! When I was in graphics, that was one of the worst things. As QC manager, when I was in graphics, was dealing with the artists like, I want to do this. I don't care what you want. This is what you're going to do.
So yeah, that's one of the interesting things. I think that's one of the things that is in some ways very complimentary about Kevin and I is, I was very artistic. I still consider myself creative, but my talent for, manual graphic art is like maybe in the top 75%, but not the top
still
90.
Higher than mine.
Well, but the problem is if you really want to be successful as a graphic artist, you have to be in the top 10% and be motivated to practice every day, at least a few hours. So yeah, for me, but I'm also very about organization. I really like the order of things and systems. and trying to, break that down and stuff like that. So I think that's maybe why this is a really good fit for me. Right. I thought I was going to go off and do something else, but in the end, people were noticing these other talents that I just wasn't even paying attention to. So that was great to have people help me with that.
So to finish up, just because I don't want chat to go nuts on me too much here, is part of, you have to have that creative mind in order to make these books. And one of the things that I guess I've learned to just deal with, like last 20 years, I don't really say too much about it. I know back when I was in the Air Force in the 90s, gaming books, like I'm just telling you, I would scream about every one of them that I ever picked up. Didn't matter if it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you are the richest people out there when it comes to gaming. You can't edit your dang, I could never pass much. If I were to give this to my superiors, I'd get fired. I'd get kicked out. Anyway, but I think it's because you need that artistic bent. And I think that's just part of, we accept that in the game books because it adds to the feel, I guess you'd say. It adds to the ambiance of the game itself to have it written in a certain way. Because to be fair, I complain about everyone. We're going to talk about Palladium here, but I complain about everyone that is put out there. And when I pick up a Palladium book, sometimes just like, oh my God. But at the same time, if it wasn't that, I don't know if I'd feel the same way. Like, oh, this is Palladium. Yep, got to deal with some of this. But where did this go in the book?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I look at a lot of rules and I get frustrated when you just have I'm not throwing shade or anything, but for me, just seeing I don't know how many pages is the Pathfinder 2nd edition book. I was just like, I don't know where I'm going to find the time to read that. Right. And I don't like, my, lore and all this stuff intermixed with actual statements of rules. And that's one of the things where I think Savage Worlds does really well. They're really good at having clear, concise, rules. And then they'll have really neat, flavorful examples, but it's separate, right? You get the core rule. So it's really great for reference. And then you have an example and that is flavorful or interesting or whatever. And I think that's a good approach. And so that's one of the things I am really thankful for, that I was able to do a lot of that and cut my teeth, because Savage Rifts, working on the 2nd edition for that and the update to the Adventure Edition, doing a 3-month playtest feedback period, running the Q&A for 2 or 3 years now, the fan Q&A for that, the rules Q&A. And so I'm really getting used to, okay, here's how you really need to, it'll bite you if you don't phrase something just so sometimes. And you need to make sure that things are clear. But if you make sentences too complicated, you start losing focus and definition. So there's a lot of things that you really have to dial in for that to be effective.
Right. And you, depending on how big and what your target audience is, and
absolutely, target audience is huge, right? I would argue that Rifts, this is my original book, 3rd printing, worn, of course, but when Rifts came out in 1991, it was very well poised to storm the market for the gamers at the time. But the same people or their kids now, right, or even grandkids maybe, will say, I can't absorb that book. The rules are confusing to me, right? Yet but it was so approachable then. So that's expectations change over time. Now I've played Magic the Gathering. I played D&D 3rd edition. I played 5th edition, right?
You said all the words that on this channel are verboten.
Right. But I play a little bit of everything, right? So my point is just that there are innovations that come in design. I played a lot of Warhammer, right? If you play a lot of Warhammer and a lot of war games, then you're like, why is this combat system here in this one system so clunky? When tabletop war games, it's simple, right? It's fast because you've got to run essentially 200 combats in a 4-hour period in a competitive wargaming tournament, right? Which I enjoy those. So, you really things have to be clear and cut and dry for that kind of gaming. So anyways.
Yeah. I had a question. Chat kind of threw me off here. I had a question I was going to ask. Let's see. Well, actually, let me do this. Let me hit, first of all, this happened a long time ago. Thanks for the $2, Raven's Lair. Noro is my wife. Oh. I don't know what I said, but I probably deserve to be smacked on the back of the head. It's normal. I'm going to wait for these questions. I have a bunch of the questions that people have asked Star, but I want to wait until we actually get into the QA or the
Sure, I see
2A
a lot
side
of
of it.
people asking about BTS, it seems. So
Yeah, so we just got done with our Beyond the Supernatural thing, and I can tell you, like, my Discord explodes over the idea. When's the magic book coming out? Oh my god! Like, that's on my list of things to ask. So if you want to prepare that response,
I'm prepared for. I heard it all before. Trust me. I don't know. Y'all could ask me anything I haven't been asked before. So
Well,
it's a
let's
challenge.
well, first of all, you talked about playing a bunch of different games, and I think that is important, especially for a designer, to look at the trends in the hobby. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say
Sure.
I like every trend in the hobby. In fact, one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of Palladium is I think, and Kevin and I talked about this a little bit when he was on, is the fact that certain things I think are misunderstood. And one of, sorry, hold on, didn't get that off the screen there. So here,
It's okay.
but is that rulings over rules is a big thing for me. Like, I don't need a rule for everything. This is like you were talking Pathfinder. When you talked about that, that just really jogged my memory on that one. I don't need a rule for everything because I don't use battle maps. I'm theater of the mind, or if I do, they're very abstract battle maps. You're about here, you're about here, you're about here. Let's envision the scenario, right? So
Right.
I don't need a situation modifier for every little thing. I can figure it out from there, which is one of the reasons why I'm starting to lean towards more rules light games. However,
Right.
when I really dove into Palladium this year for a couple reasons, one, just for this year of Palladium books, but also
Right.
two, I was going to write
Which is
something
great.
of my
Thanks.
own. Yeah, we both agreed to this. Like, we didn't feel got enough love, but of course, once we started doing this, we started finding videos about it everywhere. Like, what the but is that if it was just a little more streamlined, what I really like about Palladium is it's written in a cinematic format. If you get the out of this mindset that it has to be reality, well, that doesn't make sense because I know MMA, and if this were to really happen, this, no. Think more in the lines of a movie or an action novel or a comic book. Think like that. Now, it's still verisimilitude, I think, is the word I wanted.
I was going to say that. Yep. I was going to say it's the difference between being simulationist and having verisimilitude, right? So, for instance, a lot of the hardcore tabletop war games are not simulationist, but they do have the verisimilitude where it's important and where it counts, right? And even real world military commanders and tactics function the same way because there is enough verisimilitude there, even though you're not measuring out. If you go look at the 1,600 feet or whatever, the 300 meters, the specific range.
You're doing your little range card, yeah.
Right. But and sure, if you angle the gun up and you fire at an angle, you can kind of like rain bullets down on people beyond the normal straight shooting effective trajectory range. But is that real, right? If you go talk to a Marine who's fought in plenty of combats before, he's going to be like, yeah, that's not really how it works, in a gunfight, right? And so that's the thing: is it verisimilitude or is it simulationist? And it's tough to fall into that trap of simulationism.
Yeah.
Whereas you're trying to find the verisimilitude and have that right energy, that is what I think is the core of really great storytelling that I love about the Palladium system.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And one of the, I think the misconceptions, especially younger folks have when they see a book like Rifts that's that thick. Like, first of all, a lot of that's lore. Look, there's lore on the armor written in the book. If you look at like the OCCs, you look at how the attributes are rolled. If you look at it from a step-by-step process, again, I personally think it could be more concise, but with that in mind, it makes sense. Yes, it takes a long time, especially in Rifts. And I just ran across this because I started making a bunch of Rifts characters. I can make an After the Bomb character like that. But a Rifts character takes me a long time to make. And some people complain about that, but I like it. And the reason I like it is because I now know that everything I need to play this game is on this character sheet. Take that book away. Okay, I'm rolling my strike, right? I roll the strike. All right, perfect. I'm laying on the ground while low crawling, and somebody's behind some cover. I can figure that out like that because it's all on my character sheet, or the game master makes that ruling over the rule. And I think that might be one of the areas that going forward with Palladium, I'm not trying to make suggestions for your business, but if you can capture that somehow, just say, hey,
I want suggestions. So here's something I want to say. We're listening. We want your feedback. In fact, I know there's some questions that I'm going to actually answer with my own questions, right? Because we want that feedback. We want to hear what the players want, what their ideas are. For instance, like the new weapons compendium that we re-released the
It,
compendium.
it needs actual modern
Modern
because that's one of my favorite books ever written. Because I'm one of those weirdos that actually uses penetrating value in my game.
Right. So, but we renamed it to modern instead of contemporary because technically modern is late 20th century, right? And so instead of contemporary because it doesn't have the newest stuff. But people need it. People want it. And they told us about it at the Palladium Open House. And we were like, okay, well, let's reprint it. And people are happy, right? And that's the point is we're listening. It's not our hobby. It's our hobby.
Right. And in talking with Kevin, I definitely got that vibe from him as well. But I actually want to bring this back a little bit. I kind of want to go back to talk a little bit more about you, so that our members here, only because I know that if I start asking questions, I'm going to get sidetracked from everything, and it's going to start looking like an interview. And I really want to keep the conversational format of this for my own benefit, if nothing else. So your start in the hobby as a whole. So you said that your first game was TMNT, which is awesome because, well, technically not my first game to play. That was the first game that I bought a book for, and the first game that I played more than a one shot, not knowing what role playing was, other than BattleTech, but that's more of a tactical.
Well, that's what I was going to say is actually BattleTech was my actual entry into the hobby. I started BattleTech. I was in middle school, and my buddies and I were going to conventions and playing like lance competitions where each one of us would have a mech. There's 4 mechs right in a lance, and you duke it out. You have a certain. Usually, it was just by tonnage.
We played for money.
You guys played for money. Okay, we just went to competitions. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. The NanCon is, if you want to date myself, back in Houston, Texas. Nan's Games and Comics is a popular comic book store in Houston, and so we would go to the NanCon, and I would interact. I was there for the BattleTech events. I'd be there the whole time doing BattleTech stuff, and I got into that, and then one of my buddies, we were in gym. And it was one of those things where, I don't know, it was raining. They had us lined up, and we are just sitting in rows in the gym. And one of my buddies pulled out the big red box, for the starter box for Dungeons and Dragons. So that was my first encounter with role playing. But then the first game that I ever owned and ran was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's very similar. Now that you say it like that, that's very similar to mine because I played Redbox. I didn't realize what it was. I don't know all the crazy editions necessarily. I mean, I do now, but back then, I remember the red box, red cover, and the red book. Right. Played that. Everybody knows my aunt story. If they don't, you can watch on about 400 other videos I talked about that I still remember to this day. And it's it's actually going to be a question I ask you in a little bit. And then the first one, other than, again, BattleTech, which we kind of added some role playing in BattleTech, the people like House Kurita, we made them follow the Bushido code, all that nonsense. I was a Capellan, so I could do whatever the hell I wanted.
Trash.
I liked it. So where you speak Chinese, I'm not fluent, but I lived in and I spoke Russian. So I like the Maskirovka, portion of House Liao. When it started turning Chinese, I was like, oh, come on. Just because the world's changing doesn't mean House Liao has to. But but then the first game that's we sat down and role played, and I played, I guess you'd call it a campaign aspect more than once, was TMNT. Or was it Robotech? Right. See, Robotech and TMNT happened at about the same time for me. Now I'm forgetting which one it was. Either way.
I mean, I did TMNT, and then I found out you could get martial arts from Ninjas and Super Spies. So I bought Ninjas and Super Spies. And then it was that, where the book will mention something or you'll see an ad. And yeah, the Palladium has always been really good about, referencing, if you like this, see our other book or other game. And once I got started, I picked up Heroes Unlimited and then.
So did that work out for you, the martial arts? Because I'll be honest, I got, you can see the orange book right there, Ninja Super Spies, for the same reason. And it turned out for me that I ended up never incorporating it again. It just didn't work out for me. It was too much for not enough benefit.
I mean, we used it because I would run the booklets, the adventure booklets for TMNT, like Truckin' Turtles or Turtles Go Hollywood.
I never had them.
Right. Well, and it was back then. It's like you couldn't order stuff on the internet. You just had to see if it was at the hobby shop kind of thing. And I had no idea what mail order was. I was a kid. So yeah, I think we used those through a couple I only did 1 or 2 major campaigns with Turtles. But we did use them. I built a lot of characters using it. And I really enjoyed that. But yeah, it worked for me. But
That's good. So I didn't get into like the key powers and so forth. That's definitely more of a heathen dog thing. I was just trying to incorporate different martial arts. As somebody who took
That's
martial
what we
arts back in the
focused on, was just the core. And my buddies and I were actually, me and my two buddies actually ended up taking martial arts together for years. It was just, part of our interests,
I
One of them
absolutely
was
love that
Chinese and
Ninjas and Super Spies included Chi Na, because I was taking Northern Shaolin at the time, which included Chi Na, like one of the grasping hands aspects, and I absolutely loved it. It's like, it's in the book, and I was like, it's actually not that, as far as a game can incorporate, the capabilities, it's actually not that far off from what I've been learning. Uh, so you basically got your start in BattleTech TMNT. What what was your experience like playing? It's like, for me, believe it or not, well, I did play in high school and I was exposed to, say, riffs. That's actually where I learned to hate riffs. We can talk about that later. I don't hate riffs. I was just saying at that time I did.
sure.
But I was exposed to a bunch of different games. Some I liked, some I didn't like. But it wasn't actually until I joined the Air Force. Some people talk about their military careers like, well, I joined the military and got out of gaming. That's where it amplified to the nth degree, where I started playing everything. I was stationed at Kirtland Air Force Base. I would play at War Games West in Albuquerque. And man, did I play everything. Of course, at that time, White Wolf was starting to become popular. I played
Yeah.
everything that I can think of at that point.
Yeah, I had friends that ran that, and I never really. I mean, I played a few, but I never really got into like vampire,
Same
like
here.
masquerade type stuff. I enjoyed Hunter the Reckoning. I thought that was fun, like trying to hunt the big werewolves and vampires and stuff. I think I read Shadowrun, maybe played a game or two. Never really played much Shadowrun, but I played, like I said, I played a ton of BattleTech. But and I've played my share of D&D. I played the old West End game Star Wars for a
That's the
while.
best one too.
Yeah, one of my buddies was a total killer GM. Whether we were playing D&D, he had AD&D books. Where we were playing his AD&D games or his Star Wars games, he was rough, dude. And so it was really fun. It was very challenging actually, but in the end, I think it influenced my game mastering style and stuff like that a lot. So
Okay. And then what led to? I'm trying. Chat, calm down. I got some things starred here. I think I'm gonna have more questions from chat than I am in my own list here.
they're replacing Heathen Dog. It's cool.
Yeah, very fair. Well, Heathen Dog's gonna keep me because I'm the type of person that'll ramble. Like, because I like just talking with people about stuff like this. Like,
Sure.
if you saw me and Kevin talking, Heathen Dog would have to jump in and be like, okay, let's get this back on track here. So I actually have him as kind of my facilitator for that. But first of all, I guess I'll ask it this way: how much time did you spend in the Air Force?
4 years active duty.
4 years. Okay. So then when you got out, you kind of already talked about what you did when you got out. How did your gaming experience change from before the Air Force, in the Air Force, and then after the Air Force, as far as like the people you played with, the type of campaigns you ran, things you learned and so forth that led you to where you are today? But I'm talking on a game mastering, game playing level.
So there's a couple of things. So, we don't need to go through like my entire history or whatever of every
Right.
single job I've had, but there are a couple of things that are influential to me. So I was a missionary in Taiwan, right after high school. I was raised Mormon. And so
Okay.
2 years as a missionary overseas really influenced my take on the world. And I saw a lot of good things. I saw a lot of really rough things about how life in the world really is, while I was there. But also like that kind of like breaking into a foreign land and culture shock and all those things, learning another language. And then, that was actually then seasoned a lot by becoming a China analyst, because I'm like looking at, it was weird. And anyway, I hate to digress too much, but Taiwan is like a time capsule of what traditional Chinese culture was.
Okay.
And whereas China, with the Cultural Revolution, really wiped out the Marxism, really wiped out the traditional Chinese culture and values, and religion and all those kind of things. And so, but also, then I also studied all their war machines, right? And a lot of it's Russian, right? And a lot of it is natively made. The what they can pull off, we'll put it that way. And then because they don't have very good stuff. I mean, just in general, their stuff is a mess. But then the other thing was I also worked with a jousting troupe. And they did
Oh wow.
we did like 13th century reenactment type stuff. And it was you know, there were fights, and it was a what would you call that? Stunt. It was a stunt show, and so
Okay.
that was interesting being involved with that too. And I remember one time, it's like the things they say you can't do in role playing games, right? So, for instance, one of my good buddies, Mike Beeman, he was the Green Knight in a lot of stunt shows and jousting shows in the Southern United States, right? And so, one time we were doing a fight, and I was the master at arms, so I would put the weapons and the blood packs out all over the battlefield and hide them, and then so they would know they could walk over here and pick up a shield during the middle of their fight. I would announce all the knights and stuff like that. Well, one time I saw him and I was like, there's something weird about him. He's a big dude. He's like 6'2". And he was so big that when he was also in the army, when he was a ranger. And so he was so big that when he put on his full battle rattle, he couldn't fit in the radio position in a Humvee. He had to command from the turret. He's a huge, huge guy. And I remember one time I was watching him in a fight and I was like, he's one-handing a two-handed sword. These things that you're just sold, oh, you can't do that. Well, if you're that big, you can. And but it looked normal for him. It looked like a long sword for him, right?
Okay.
It was the hugest sword they had. So and seeing knights kip up off the ground in full plate mail.
Okay, that
right?
I'd have to see. Like, wow.
I did. I've seen it, right? And
I'm not saying I disbelieve you. It's just, I would have to see that. To me, that would be amazing. Wow, how the hell did you do that?
It was amazing. Well, the guy was, I'll say, the guy was an acrobat before he joined the jousting troupe, right? So this is a very fit guy, very lean, very strong, wiry. But yeah, I saw him do it multiple times. It was one of the tricks he liked to do, right? And that's in the middle of an entire show of jousting and fighting. And I mean, it's sure.
Now you can have
really
everybody in my chat having every one of their characters do that from now on. Everybody can do it now.
Well, but I had those experiences, and then I got annoyed with my buddy when my character had climbing and was super strong. But we were playing, he still runs AD&D like first edition or something, right?
Okay.
And so, but I was like, I built this knight, and I was like, I want to climb the side of this castle wall. He's like, you can't do that in full armor. I said, why not? I've got the skill. I can lift the weight. Right. And it's just, but you can't. Well, why not? Because people can't do that. Sure they can. If you go look it up on the internet, there's people that do all types of reenactment stuff. That's really, really amazing. So it's just amazing what you can see. The reality of working in intel and, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and then seeing all those things, studying militaries, studying orders of battle. And so, not that I'm like some tactical genius or anything, but I know, I think I have the vision of that more than a lot of other people might. And so seeing the realities of those things, seeing the realities of insurgencies and studying them, being professionally trained on them, it was really interesting. And I think it does bring a little bit different perspective to conflict. And you realize that, war is brutal. And it's not easy. People imagine, I'll just run in there with my sword, or the coalition just send 1,000 Samus and they can just carpet bomb, Kingsdale or something, and it's over, right? And it's just like, no, that's not. Sorry,
it doesn't matter if it's politics, doesn't matter if it's war, it doesn't matter if it's a game. For the dungeon master's perspective, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts that goes on behind the scenes, and for our place in dealing with players or being the player, there are a lot of unknowns, right? And it was Rumsfeld that said that, but anyway, it's like
right. There are known unknowns and unknown unknowns. Yeah.
Right. And so as a dungeon master, you have to be flexible. At some point though, you make a rule like if I was in your game and you said no, you can't kip up an armor, I'd be like, all right, can I have a negative instead of just a no, please? That'd be nice. But
well, and I think that's a better place. And I mean, everybody run the game you want to run. I'm not telling you how to run a game, but for me, it really helped, especially with the writing and design. But I find that I do bring a lot of these themes into my role-playing games, right? I don't know if I would have my players running Cyber Knights the same way, or I don't know if I would be as good a game master to prepare an adventure with moral conflicts for them if I hadn't had some of the experiences I've had. I don't know if I would allow some of the things that, that you just get told this when you're 14 and you think it's this immutable rule, like one-handing a two-handed sword, right? But I'm much more of the, well, let's discuss it. Okay, this seems feasible. Let's make if we need to, let's make a house rule. Most of the time you don't. You just need to give them, it'll be a penalty to do this, right? Or
Right,
you
yeah,
get a
yeah.
bonus for that.
Rulings over rules. I'm a huge fan of that. As long as the game master is consistent, if you give me the -2, give the NPCs a -2, whatever, let's move on. I want to keep the game moving. At the same time, I like to kind of understand the framework that I'm working in. So yeah.
Right.
Then
And one, the other thing I will say too is like, for instance, just simple things too, like when you wear chainmail, if you're wearing like a hauberk, all that's your arms, waist, thighs, your chest, it's all that weight's in one spot.
Yep.
And the funny thing is that chainmail can be as heavier than well done plate mail. And the plate, if it's it's fitted and designed for and fitted for a specific person, and this weight's all distributed. Well, that makes a huge difference if you want to go. I don't know if the same guy could have kipped up off the ground if he'd been wearing a full chainmail hauberk, right? But I've seen him do it in plate and chain, right, where he had arms and shoulders, breastplate, some light chain underneath, right? So it does inform my game a bit too. So
what kind of games did you play? I mean, did you play like a lot of one shots? Did you play what other types of things is in terms of gaming? Did you play or watch or just be or were a part of in terms that again just kind of gave you that breadth of experience?
So
I mean, you don't have to name them all off. Just to be fair, just
sure.
Some of your favorites.
Well, I'll start with, so I really love movies like Aliens, Army of Darkness, Lord of the Rings, Marvel's fun. Huge Star Wars fan. I like Star Trek, original and Next Generation. Let's see. I don't get into a lot of the modern stuff as much. I don't like it. I don't think they know how to write. I don't think they know how to write military characters or real strong characters.
First episode of Discovery with Michael Burnham, is that the character's name? And we're like, how is she not court-martialed? And then how did she just come back?
Right.
Heathen Dog and I yelled about that for like an hour. Like, how the hell she was court-martialed? She would not be on the ship. Like, oh my God.
And I had a problem with that. I had a problem with I never even watched Picard because I saw someone do a breakdown of how the lore was wrong from Next Generation for Data, and I was like, and I love that lore. I mean, that's why I watched the dang show, right? And so I was like, oh, I have no interest if they're not going to pick up the lore from where it was. I have no interest in any of that, and I don't need people preaching to me either. But the other thing is that so one of the things that Kevin and I enjoy is we seem to have a similar lexicon of movies. Now he's seen all these old Hammer movies and stuff like that, but I've seen some of the newer stuff that maybe was inspired by things like that, including say like Star Wars or something, right? And so, but we have a wide similar cinematic type library. I really like to watch sci-fi and fantasy and keep up with it. I'm a little more of a sci-fi guy and hard sci-fi than like fantasy. But
have I got questions for you?
It's just good. But then when it comes to video games, I really love the Mass Effect trilogy.
Okay.
My buddy,
I like how you said trilogy. Good.
Right. And my buddy kept telling me, he was like, dude, you got to play Mass Effect. You got to play Mass Effect. You got to play Mass Effect. And I was in the Air Force, right? And we were in the Air Force. And I was like, okay, fine. He's like, he gave me the disc. And I was like, fine. I love that so much. I got completionist. I found everything on the map whole game you could find. I didn't even know that was an achievement until it popped up. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's it. But I love that game. I love the ambiance, the music, the combination of a lot of stuff. And then I think the best one was 2. For me, the best one was 2.
I agree.
The introduction to 2 was like, it was amazing. And they really
also 2 didn't have the Mako that you couldn't.
Systems.
You could actually control the Mako in 2. That first Mass Effect trying to drive around the planets.
Well, and the equipment system, the gun modification and customization system, the combat, it was just a lot better. Yeah. I also let me see. I also really enjoy the Fallout series. Fallout 1, Fallout 2. I never beat the Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel, the turn-based tactics one. I've started a whole bunch of times and never finished it.
That's me with every Fallout game.
But I love the branching. I beat all the rest of them. But and then I even got a VR headset to play Fallout 4 VR.
Oh wow!
And they did not do that. They did not do a good port. But it was still fun. It was still really cool until you go into some place like Diamond City, and it's like lag. It's just like the game can't handle it. But it was fun. It was fun to like what is that bayonet. I had these guns with you've got your rifle and it's all customized, and you got a bayonet, and ghouls are running at you and you're bayoneting them and then gunning down the rest of them and stuff. That was fun. And it's scarier, way scarier in VR. Ghouls are like, but when you put on the VR headset, that was pretty intense for me, depending on the ambiance of the scene. But anyways, I really enjoyed those games. I also like a lot of strategy games. I'm a big Civilization, Master of Orion, and then I would have to say I've played a crazy ton of RimWorld, and like heavily modded, so that it's basically like riffs with sci-fi and magic and all this stuff.
I don't really mod my RimWorld games that much. I don't know. I'm lazy when I play, and I kind of figure if I have to mod a game too much, it's like I'm not even playing the game anymore. But
right.
that is one of my go-to games. In fact, I don't put it on my computer because I get nothing done for about a week or two if I have it on there. Games like that, Factorio, that's another one that
I never did Factorio, possibly because of that. And I do like shooters and stuff. Doom. The series is great. And let's see. I'm a big fan of pretty much most of the Paradox Entertainment games. So I really love Hearts of Iron series. I actually worked on a mod team doing Fallout, but it's a strategic game, like a strategic mod where you play the different factions in North America in Fallout, running it, and Brotherhood of Steel and trying to conquer the Mojave or whatever. But I love strategy games as well. And that's what I tend to get into more. I mean, back when I was younger, I guess you'd say, I really love like Counter-Strike beta and stuff like that. But I'm not much of I don't enjoy, I just played so many shooters. I don't really enjoy Twitch shooting anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But and then when it comes to tabletop games, I mean, you've heard a lot of the different stuff that I've played. Let me look at some of my collection. I mean, I played a ton of Robotech. My buddies and I would basically use Robotech as a palate cleanser. We'd run like we would do a whole campaign. I did a lot of long campaigns, like year long, like multiple year or two long campaigns where we were playing all summer every weekend, right? And then well, sometimes we'd run sometimes there'd be in some of the books, like the Macross 2, I think it was books, they had like some short campaigns that you could run that would be like 3 or 4 sessions, a couple of adventures or Macross Plus books. And so I know it was Macross 2. Anyways, doesn't matter. But we would run little Robotech adventures as kind of a palate cleanser, and then we usually end up going right back to riffs. But that was kind of my experience. I also really like tabletop board games and war games. I'm a huge Warhammer 40,000 fan. I managed a Games Workshop store for a while. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was involved in leagues where we played every week for a couple of years.
I wanted to get involved in Warhammer, but I grew up poor, first of all. And so when I did finally get into it, I couldn't afford the minis. And so we used to play with paper cutouts, because I played fantasy, not 40K. So we'd have our formations. I'd do like these 1-inch squares. And so we'd cut them out, put them on the table. But what ended up happening to me is they said, well, you have to have your miniatures painted in a minimum of 3 colors. Right, blah, blah. Right. I said, go F yourself. I'm not doing that.
I would do the bare minimum with, I was running Black Templars in 3rd edition. And so I was very competitive. And then when you work for Games Workshop, everyone, all the store personnel are very, very, very competitive. But I would do that because I was mostly focused on playing the games. But then
I still have the same 8 battle mechs. You can maybe barely see them right there from high school that I used to represent everything that I ever played in BattleTech. See this Vindicator? Yeah, okay, this is now a locust for this fight.
So yeah, right before I joined the Air Force, I actually ran, this is in Colorado, at this game shop called Valhalla's in Denver. I ran a BattleTech league where it started out with just 2007.
So I was stationed at Lowry. So that tells you how old I am. I was stationed at Lowry for a little bit, so I actually got out to Denver and Aurora. And if I'd have known about that, I would have never been on base.
And we have fun. It was like Tuesday was Wednesday nights, but it started out, a few of my buddies, I used to do like a narrative campaign with them, and there were no characters. I mean, they named their character, they wrote a backstory for them, they had their piloting skills, and I think we had some sort of system where you could get kind of like edges or perks that you could
Okay, so
use
second
once a
edition.
battle kind of thing. No, we were playing the old school stuff.
So,
But
was the old
we
one,
were-
because this is stuff I played. Was it 5 kills to raise your gunnery skill and 4 kills to raise your piloting skill, if I remember correctly?
I did it all narratively. We
Okay.
were making half of this stuff up.
Cool.
But what I did was I let them salvage everything they captured. Because one of the guys, that was his like special ability, he could do stuff in half the normal time and stuff like that. And so if they got weapons destroyed, that was the thing. I let them have basically as much armor as they wanted, but if they had weapons destroyed or actuators destroyed, they had to salvage them and put them on their own mechs. And it got when I moved away, I think we got up to like, we had like 10, 15 players a week, and I ended
Wow,
up having
nice.
to split it. And then my buddy got it going up, I think he said, to 20 people, and it was like 2 or 3 groups would be running on different tables in the shop. But we had a lot of fun with it. I just love it's a very pure, simple thing, right? The
Yes.
role-playing aspect of it was pretty simple, and then you'd get on this tabletop battlefield and duke it out, and what's going to happen, right? Every once in a while someone would get a headshot and the character dies, or I say they're critically wounded, right, and they're in the hospital or something.
Yep.
Know,
It's one of the things I loved about BattleTech, especially back then, was its simplicity, because I was not a war gamer. In fact, I thought most war games were boring. For me, again, not judging anybody else, because I know chat
everyone's
go
different
nuts if I do.
folks, right?
But I love the fact that BattleTech to me was the most simplistic set of rules that still were meaningful, and I got to play giant stompy robots. So, and I tried games like Heavy Gear, and not that I'm against Heavy Gear, but I don't know, roller skating mechs was a little weird to me.
Yeah, I actually played the role playing game.
Yeah, right there. First edition, the Silhouette system. We're going to be covering that next year. But I thought that Heavy Gear had the best computer games. Blew the Mech Warrior games out of the water. But the Activision ones in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm a Mech Warrior fan, and what is it, Mech Commander? I enjoyed those. But I've played a lot of Mech Warrior Online as well. Not in a
PGI. One of the things to understand about me is that I'm a purist in everything. Either do it right or don't do it at all. And the fact that water doesn't slow you down or give you heat or help you heat, and the fact that it had pinpoint accuracy, I was like, really? But I get it. It's it's an action game. That's what people wanted. So I mean, I'm not going to bust his balls too much. I don't play anymore, but I used to play. It's actually how I started streaming, was by playing Mech Warrior Online. So, but all right. So we'll move now into, let's see, working. So you already talked a lot about how you got in with the Pinnacle and Palladium. If you want to talk a little bit more about how that happened specifically, cool. If not, we can talk more about like what your happenings are, I guess, right now, without asking the questions yet, with Palladium Books, like how that's been working out for you. How I'll let you direct this how you want, since you already did a lot of discussion about this already. But kind of moving from the game player side to the game designer side.
Yeah, that was an interesting transition, right? I was one of those guys that I think a lot of the viewers or you might be in the same boat, where it's like you want to play, but you run the best game in your group, or you're the one that's interested.
At least I think I do.
Yeah, or it's not going to happen if you don't run it, right? So for me, I was always on that side, and so I was always tinkering with rules. I think what's one of the great things about the Palladium system is, in the books it says, hey, well, if you need a house rule, do what you need to do, right? Or for instance, people will get will say, oh, well, it's not, these rules aren't clear. Well, it's not clear because Kevin wants the game master to decide.
Can you do me a favor in the future, like in the next printing of a book, even if you don't change the rules, can you put that in big, bold marquee letters somewhere? Because that is one of the things that drives me crazy. Like, and don't get me wrong, I fall into that trap sometimes as well. Like, I can't figure out how this rule is supposed to work, because I know I'm gonna get a player that argues, and things like, no, I'm there to make a decision. I'm there to make that ruling, not the rule. But I hear it all the time. Like, it's not clear. I don't understand it.
Right.
Just say it's +2 and move on.
And there is merit to a lot of that. I'm not saying like it's perfect as is, and it was written by God's holy hand or anything. But there is I like that. I enjoyed that space.
Mhm.
And so even when I was a kid, I designed my own tabletop RPG. It was a 3D6 based RPG. It was terrible, but I just wanted to.
Mhm.
And I've always been one of those people that always wanted to write stories, or I'd have ideas for stories, and I couldn't not write them down. I have folders full of this stupid stuff, right? But the game mastering was my outlet for doing those things, and so like one of the things I did when I was a kid is a kid, I mean, it was an adult sized male, but you know what I mean.
You're all a bunch of kids to me.
Yeah, see, but yeah, before I was 20, is one of the things we did is we doubled all melee damage, because I was like, oh, it feels like the melee weapons and rifts don't do as much damage, as the guns, right? And I've noticed my players were never using melee weapons, so I doubled all melee weapon damage. They paid attention to the melee weapons then, right? We tried a lot of different little things, parrying rifles and hand-to-hand combat, right, or whatever.
What about putting house rules like that, whether they're yours or from the fans, just little, maybe one paragraph anecdote house rules like that in the Rifter, just to show people, I mean, I don't know what the sales of the Rifter are, but just to get the information out there, say, hey, look at what this table does. Look at what
Rifter's
this
doing
table
great.
does.
The Rifter was on the top 10 on Drive-Thru RPG. The Rifter 85.
That's awesome.
It was on. I mean, I was very happy to see it, and I think people were really. It shows, all the great work that Kevin and Wayne especially did for 20 years, right, on the Rifter. And so when we brought it back, when I came in, we decided we're going to do it annually, every year instead of quarterly. And because otherwise it just eats into the production schedule of other things, and we want to get people books, and we can get to that in a second, I'm sure, when we get to the question section. But no, the Rifter's great, and it's a lot bigger too because of that. So this one was like, I think 256 pages, or
I think examples, like one of the things that I really love from Kevin's writing, and I don't know how much of that's yours or Wayne's as well, but is the fact that when he talks about something, especially like the new Rift's Ultimate book, he says, this was my thought process for this. And that's something, because I am so much of a spirit of the law person over the letter of the law. Like knowing the author's intent helps me 100-fold better than, say, add +2 to this.
Yeah, well, and I would say, just to that specific thing, I would love people to do more submissions like that for the Rifter. That would be great, right? I think that would be great. And we send it into the Rifter, right? And we get a lot of submissions. So if it doesn't make it in, maybe clean it up and submit it the next year, right? I don't want to. I want people to understand that, because I had a hard time just, like I said, we went with it's 224 pages, and
wow, that's a real full-size book.
Yeah, and it's got the new one. 85 has some great stuff in it, by the way. A lot of really great. It has a great introductory Rifts adventure, or a Rifts adventure for lower level players, and it has some great stuff on the Glitter Boy. But there's a ton of great articles for fantasy, for Beyond the Supernatural.
That was one of the reasons I never bought the Rifter when I was younger, because I didn't realize. I thought it was just for Rifts, and I don't play Rifts.
No, it's not just for Rifts.
I didn't realize that until I was much older.
I think we have something for almost every single one of the product lines in there. So we've got Dead Rain, we've got Beyond the Supernatural, we've got Nightbane. I mean, it's Heroes Unlimited. It's great. After the Bomb type stuff. So, I think that that's something that I would love to see people submit. That's one of my favorite things to ask people, is what their favorite house rules are. And growing up in that kind of an environment and trying things out on my own, I think it naturally led me to realize I had this interest. And so it was kind of like when I went back to school with the GI Bill. At first I was like, well, I'm just going to be mercenary and make a lot of money. When I go back to school, I'll get some degree, like, petroleum engineering or economics or something. And then I realized, I should just do what I want to do. So I studied, design, like design thinking, right? And information architecture, and visual design, and layout, and product design, and marketing, and these are all in that course, the series of my major. It was great. It was exactly what I wanted, and also included game design and writing. And then
Awesome.
I got that great opportunity, and so I think that's part of it is you can't please everybody. I learned very, very, very quickly when we did the
And nerds have
Adventure Edition
opinions.
update for Savage Rifts. But what was important to me was dialing in Savage Rifts to be loyal to the original Rifts, the things, that the magic that's there. And we got a lot of feedback from players as they've been playing things. They're like, this is an interesting conversion, but the mine, for instance, we had an issue. The Mind Melter didn't feel like the Mind Melter. You could arguably build something more powerful using a more generic character set. Same thing with the Leyline Walker. So I reread through the lore and because it's such a different system.
Mhm.
In a lot of places it was, hey, I need something that in this system harkens back to the lore of that character, that OCC or RCC or whatever, and brings it to life in this system. So yeah, that's things that were, but it was just those same kind of game master. If you might decide how something needs to happen for your game as a game master, right? The book says you can't take an APOC out of Wormwood, but that's what a game master's for, right? Is to change that story. And
Well, and one of the things I talk about, especially with modern books, and I'm not going to ask you to dog on any company, but I'm going to do it here. I absolutely despise what WotC's done with Dungeons and Dragons, because I think a lot of what happened with it is backward think. Instead of saying we are going to keep these limitations, we are going to keep these areas, color within your area there, right? Stay within the lines. We're just going to open it all up and everybody can do what they want. Now it's up to game masters to rein it back in. And I personally think that's backward think, because nothing ever gets reined in. Everything gets expanded upon. If you have limitation, like you just said right there, yeah, you know what? I'm going to allow a Dwarven Wizard, or I'm going to allow you to have this piece of item, or this equipment, this glitter boy that you shouldn't have in this location. Why? Because it fits my campaign and I can do that.
Right.
But keep the lines there for the core system, and stop saying, well, we have to, since everybody's doing what they want anyway, why don't we just say they can, let's just give them everything. And I really, it's one of the things I like about Palladium and some other games, one of my favorite being Earth Dawn, is the fact that it says, no, you're staying in this circle and there's nothing you can do about that other than, oh wait, I'm the game master and I have everything I can do about that.
You have carte blanche, right?
Right.
And so, and in the end, I learned very quickly, you can't please everybody, but you need to stick to your guns and try and tell a specific kind of story. Now, one of the nice things about the Savage World system is it has a way to kind of codify house rules. Or they call them setting rules for different settings. So if you're doing horror, or you're doing, science fiction or fantasy or whatever, right? And so I think that's great. And that's one of the things that I think was really great, because with Savage Rifts, I could dial it in how I would like it, but then you can still turn on and off these toggles, right? And one of the things they did with the Superpowers Companion is they said, here's power levels depending on which comic book type you want to emulate with your game. Well, I brought that into Savage Rifts so that you could say, hey, I want because some people thought, the original first edition of Savage Rifts was just really like balls to the wall, like Heroes of the Megaverse kind of thing, right? Really high powered stuff.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. Rifts is pretty gun. I mean, for
and
my taste,
Rifts
it is pretty
right.
So.
But I dialed it back a bit, because I felt like I play a little, I guess, harder game. I like the horror aspect a little more, the action horror. And so I dialed back a little bit of the free stuff. But then, I codified options. If the game master wants to run a different kind of game, more power to you. I even have options in there. So if you want to run a game and you don't even get the full OCCs or iconic frameworks or whatever, right? You just build normal Savage Worlds characters. Here's some plastic man. Here's a laser pistol. Good luck in the wasteland, right? You could do that, and I've run something very close to that, and we've had a lot of fun. So I think it's, it's just about telling different kinds of stories, in my opinion.
You said the S word. I'm with you. You actually can get most of the people in my chat to agree with that. That it is, we like the concept of the emergent story. It comes from the gameplay, and I think that's one of the things that you said. Something like Rifts has always been too gonzo, too over the top for me. But believe it or not, when Kevin was on here, even though it was just a couple of months ago, the way he was talking about it had me relook at Rifts. And to be completely honest, I kind of was sold on it after that. I was like, okay, I get what you're saying. For what 30 years, I didn't get what you were trying to sell.
Well,
Just a
did you
couple
do
cents,
the
picked it up.
original book cover to cover?
I didn't know. No, I was a player in it. I wasn't a game master. I just thought it was too weird. Like I didn't like weird stuff.
Grab the 30th anniversary. Do you have a 30th anniversary?
Yeah, I have the 30th
Okay, we
anniversary.
can send you one if you don't have it, but just grab it, okay? And do me a favor. And you don't even have to, obviously you don't have to read the rules section really, unless you want to blast the past, but read the character write-ups and then read the world book section. And just read all the fluff stuff, just straight through the book. And here's what I think is, people say Riffs is everything or Riffs is gonzo. I don't really like that term. But personally, Riffs can have anything in it. It can be what you want it to be. And that's one of the powerful things about the setting. But the thing that really for me drives it home, because I could do that. GURPS can be anything, right? The thing that really drives it home for me is that the core conflicts in the setting reflect the convergence of magic and technology and horror and the unreal, right? And it's treated seriously with great characters and great factions and a lot of great story. And so that's, to me, you could do something similar to Rifts, but if it doesn't have Glitter Boys, if it doesn't have the Coalition, if it doesn't have Emperor Prospect, if it doesn't have the Federation of Magic, you see what I'm saying? If it doesn't have all these things, that's not Rifts. If it doesn't have Leyline Walkers, it doesn't have Mystics, it doesn't have Mind Melters, Psy Stalkers, Dog Boys, to me, that's not Rifts. And you could say Rifts could be anything, but if you take those things out, that's the stuff, that's why I'm there, right? Is for those kind of things. So I noticed a couple of things that I would like to answer. One of these is, will we see a Palladium system Tomorrow Legion source book? I've never even thought of that.
That's actually one of the questions I was having come up later. I started this one because I know it's a question on my list because a few people have asked that. Is there going to be a Rifts or a Palladium version of the Tomorrow Legion?
So this is interesting to me because I did this stupid 2-hour-long interview on my YouTube channel, which I don't post to anymore because I just started doing tons of interviews with Palladium and Pinnacle. So I just stopped doing my own YouTube channel because why? That was the whole point, was to get out there. But Kevin, when I asked Kevin this, because I was just asking fan questions, and Kevin said, I love Tomorrow Legion. Tomorrow Legion's already in Palladium Rifts. And I said, what? Apparently he has a Tomorrow Legionnaire encounter on some encounter table in the Adventure Primer. You guys haven't seen it, but I gave him a write-up. I mean, it might be in a future product, right? In the right spot. It's not a Tomorrow Legion source book, but there is something that could potentially be coming in a book that says, hey, by the way, and this is the Tomorrow Legion in this region nearby, and this is their thing. To me, the Tomorrow Legion in Palladium, Kevin and I have always talked about this, is the Tomorrow Legion in Savage Worlds and Tomorrow Legion in Palladium. You might see something where it's like a divergent paths at the end of 109 PA. The Legion might be in a different situation in the Palladium continuum that it is in the Pinnacle continuum, which I think is fun, right? It's only Rifts can you do stuff like that, right? And it makes total sense. But yeah, I like the Tomorrow Legion. I didn't design it, right? That was a creation of the original design team. But I think that there's a lot of great things that you can do with it, a lot of great stories to tell with it. And yeah, I think it can be a lot of fun. If people really want something like that, yeah, we're listening. Thanks for the feedback. But yeah, according to Kevin, that's already, he considers it part of the setting. He really liked the idea of, kind of the coalesce, a coalition of, is that a right word? The coalesced form of like the heroes that, often accompany Cyber Knights and Glitter Boys in their groups and their teams, having a faction that is kind of the central focus of that. It's a small, that's the other thing, is I think a lot of people misunderstand what the Tomorrow Legion is. Castle Refuge is a very small settlement near Kingsdale, and it's not like at war with the Coalition or something like that. It's
I know somebody posted a long diatribe on my Discord, which I pulled out a couple of questions out of that actually addresses that. that addresses that issue. The thing is, like, this is why I really wish Heathen Dog was here, because he understands this stuff in and out, and I'm kind of like,
yeah.
oh,
No,
okay,
it's funny. Do you have that map? The map.
Yes, I absolutely do.
So if we're already talking about it, I can just dive into it a little
that's
bit
fine.
here.
That's let me get this up here. Share my screen.
So I don't know if you can zoom in on that.
Yep. As soon as there we go.
So yeah, out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, thanks. There we go. That's perfect. Yeah. So as you can see, Castle Refuge is the central hub of the Tomorrow Legion, and really the reason it's even there and has a population is because of the war on Tolkien and the refugees flowing out of that region, and heroes gathering to try and give them some place to live. And so, Castle Refuge, just like Kingsdale, Wyken, Merktown, it's in an area that technically the coalition claims. I mean, the coalition claims all of the old United States generally, right? And then they'll say like, but we really mean it with Missouri, or we really mean it with Texas. But obviously they don't control Texas, right? You have the Texas Free Lands, you have the Pecos Empire. And it's the same thing. If you read in the books, it's interesting because in the books, it'll very clearly say, 20, 30 years ago that, CS Missouri controls down to this river. Well, unless you look at a map, you may not realize, well, that's like a small slice of Missouri. They might send out long-range patrols past that, but they do the same out into other regions as well. So, the Castle Refuge is not like at war with the coalition. It's a gathering of heroes, and generally the idea is that they're just trying to have a place for refugees to be able to settle and not be in total danger. And so, it's and if you read the lore, the leadership of Castle Refuge, I mean, they have ties to Laszlo. Aaron Tarn and Lord Coke established Castle Refuge as a refuge, and the whole idea is that they're just trying to support local communities and build up allies in the area. But poor Tennessee left out.
I get so many questions about, tell me when we're going to get a Southern Tennessee, Kentucky area book. We need one badly.
Yeah, I think that there is, with like on that map. So this is the second edition Savage Rifts map, and I worked really hard on this with Alita. She's the one of the art directors at Sigil Entertainment. That Pinnacle contracts their art through Sigil. Pinnacle just bought Sigil though, so that is something to note as well. But yeah, they've always been friends and close. But so this is one of those things where we really dialed stuff in, and I really enjoyed the whole lore behind Golden Age weaponsmiths and all these settlements in the Redstone Arsenal. And I don't know, we'll see what comes out of that. I love the lore around Atlanta. And Atlanta, a small group of true Atlanteans setting up an enclave there. And I mean, there's a lot of neat things you can do. And the other thing is as a game master, you can fill those areas out. But we'll see. I didn't know. I hadn't heard that. That's interesting. If there's a lot of people that want something.
When I reached out for questions before Kevin came on here, that was one of the ones that was repeated a lot. And even for this one, it's one of the ones that was repeated a lot. Like, hey, when are we going to get something on the Southeast? We need something for Tennessee, Kentucky. Sure. Usually Kentucky's what's mentioned, but either way, I mean.
Gotcha. And by the way, behind me on my virtual green screen, this is some of the cover art for Terror on the Dark Frontier, which is an upcoming campaign supplement box set for Savage Rifts that I'm actually play testing it with my Palladium Rifts group. So Kevin and I are excited about it just being the first big adventure box set for Rifts in general. And so I hope that maybe people can try that out and have some fun with it. But I guess some people would consider it Midwest region. I consider myself a Southerner. I'm from Texas, and Oklahoma, Kansas, that all seems like the South to me. So who knows?
Hey there, I'm from Minnesota. So, everything Midwest is where I'm from,
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know what you call that. Yeah. The West, the South, Southwest.
So I want to, one more question here or one more kind of just rolling this along before we get into the actual questions. If I've got the map again, if I need to bring it up, no big deal.
Sure.
And that's all right. So let's talk Savage Rifts and Palladium Rifts again, however you want to do this.
Sure.
But obviously you had an interest in it.
Yeah.
And you were writing for that. So how did that grow for, not just from game, but I'm talking on the business side of it. Like, how did that grow from like, hey, I really enjoy this game, to I'm writing, to all of a sudden now I'm working with Kevin Simbita?
Well, working with Kevin Simbita happened almost immediately, which was weird for me, right? I mean, I was like, I'd never expected to get the book offer that I did, right? Shane Hensley I was literally in a marketing class and on my laptop pops up an email notification, and I could only read the top line, but it was something like book contract, and it said it was from Shane Hensley, and I was like I couldn't pay attention to the rest of the class, right? Yeah, and so I jumped in, and the thing is when they met, when Sean Fannin met me at ChupacabraCon. I love saying the name of that convention. It's a good con, by the way. You meet lots of great people. Like I always love chatting with John Wick there, but the writer, the designer.
Yeah, no, yeah. I know him.
But yeah, it was interesting because the first thing they wanted me to do is they said, well, a lot of the people that were working on Savage Rifts were Savage Worlds folks that, they were new to Rifts. And they said, we really need somebody who's a real Rifts grognard who can help us with the art approvals, because it was just, if you don't know what to look for in the details, I can see a piece of art. It's kind of like that. What is it? There's a psychological phenomenon, they call it. But anyways, there's a book about it called Blink, I think is what it's called. But anyways, you can look at a picture and know that's not right or that's right. Okay. And you don't even have to know the details. You'll figure it out why your brain is recognizing that. But anyways, that really helped because I could look at art and say like, nope, this is wrong. And then I have to figure out why it's wrong. And you need 4 vents, not 2 vents on this side of the coalition soldier's helmet or whatever.
See, I like
right?
that. I like that pedantry. I really do. Like I want things. I'm an IP purist, so I want things to actually follow the IP, not some artistic rendition of it. I want what it's supposed to look like.
Well, and these are cool artists, and these are artists from all over the world, right? Some of them don't know Rifts, and that's okay. But we got to get it right. And so, and I think that if you take a look at those first 3 world books, the original 3 books and the first 3 world books, which that was my first thing was I guess art directing and managing the art between Kevin and Palladium, between Kevin and Pinnacle, and then like Atlantis and the Demon Seas, I think you're going to see there's a big step up in art. Each one is a big step up. I think with the new books, with Terror on the Dark Frontier, and then Land of a Thousand Islands, which is the upcoming Savage Rifts South America book, you're going to see that art is each time going up a notch as we dial in the process. But yeah, so immediately I was emailing Kevin about art approvals, and I'm like, Mom, I'm talking to Kevin Simbita. This is crazy. We thought it was crazy that I was working with somebody like Shane Hensley, right? I was a fan of Savage Worlds. I was like, I met Shane Hensley. I met these guys. I met this guy, and then 3 months later, 4 months later, I have a book deal, and I'm talking to Kevin. And that's, I've always, like I say, you can tell from my background, I'm a huge Palladium fan, right? That's like my origin point in gaming. And so, yeah, I was like, I'm talking to Kevin Simbita now. My mom was like, what? So, and then we, every once in a while I would call him and bother him because instead of like emails, because we really needed something for whatever reason, a deadline or whatever. And so then we started chatting on the phone. And then after the, let's see, yeah, it really started to change when we were moving into before when Shane decided to do the Rifts for Savage Worlds second edition to coincide with the upcoming Savage Worlds Adventure Edition update. That's when things really went into high gear for me, because that's when he said, Sean, you can do InDesign. He didn't know I could do that at first, right? So I sent them like these huge Word files for the first book. And then he was like, hey, I didn't know you could do InDesign. You can do InDesign. You can do, you've gotten your feet wet with rules design. It looks like you're doing a good job with that. You're doing good writing. You have a handle on what riffs is. Would you run manage that for me, that line for me? And I was like, yes. I'm not going to say no to doing riffs, more riffs. And so
I like it too much. I don't want to touch it.
Right. I mean, it's like, and then that Kickstarter went well. We did, I think, somewhere near a quarter, 220, 250 anyways. It was a great Kickstarter, and then, good sales after that. And I met Kevin at Gen Con in person. And I think that was a big deal because we really got along, and he was very complimentary. I didn't know if he was just being nice, right? Because I had never met him before. And, there's all these people seem to think some people think he's like the devil, or
oh my God, yeah. Before he was on here, I got a lot of background stuff like he's an asshole. He did this happen and this happened. He did this, and I'm like, what? That's great. Tell me what you want. I'll keep my eyeballs on it in case something happens. But from the second I first talked to him, even in emails, he's been nothing but amazing.
And that's been my experience. I mean, and now he doesn't put up with garbage, right?
Yeah,
I mean, right. So, and the other thing is I think a lot of times he can get a bad rap because he will protect, let me put this nicely or carefully as well. He will protect new writers by rewriting half of their material and not maybe clearly communicating that, and then releasing a book. And then maybe they're upset because he rewrote something, but he knew it was going to be a better product. He didn't want to let down the fans, but at the same time, he doesn't want to make them look bad. But then they'll badmouth him. That's what it seems like has happened.
Well, again, that goes back to that artist thing. No artist likes to have his art corrected, right? So, I live through that.
Again, that's the kind of thing, like, out of respect. I mean, these things. I mean, these things happen with any company that's producing products, right? And that's why, for instance, we can talk about this more later if you want, but here at Palladium now, we're not going to be announcing projects until they are on the way, imminent, for sure going to happen, right? Because instead of people getting frustrated about hearing about a product and then it gets canceled for a reason, and just out of respect, we don't want to have to say every time why a product got canceled, right? And that we shouldn't have to. But anyways, but that was a big change because Kevin was like, oh man, you've got so much talent. He's like, he said, I've made a career off of being able to recognize when people have talent and are good, artists and writers would be good to work with. He said, I'd be excited to meet somebody with half your talent. And I was like, that's really nice of you to say, but you're totally blowing smoke at my ass or something. But no, Kevin's really great to work with. It was funny because I'd heard all this stuff, and then he's only been, like, every time he's only been super cool to work with.
Absolutely.
As a licensee, right?
Okay.
Where in a very professional environment. Now, the advantage is I'm working with an established company, Pinnacle, with a good track record. And so, we're putting out and working hard to put out good professional products. Pinnacle's actually like Palladium in some ways. They're very small companies. A lot of people don't realize how small they are and how much heart and hard work goes into products. That was interesting. And then when I finally met him, it was so funny. Jody, she's the chief operations officer, Jody Black of Pinnacle, and she took me over at Gen Con 2019 to meet Kevin at the booth, and we started chatting. We chatted for an hour or two, and then I felt bad because other people wanted to meet him, so I left and came back a couple of days later. We chatted another couple hours, but I remember I went back to Joe. I was like, Kevin's really cool. Like, she's like, I know, right? And yeah, that's been my experience. Obviously, I wouldn't if we didn't get along, I wouldn't have joined him at Palladium.
No, absolutely no. Because of all that stuff that was said in the background, watch out for this, watch out for that. I'm not gonna say I went in nervous, but I was definitely like, okay, let me just feel this out a little bit. But I'm telling you, from the second, I have the same experience as you. Obviously, you're more on the business side, but emails went back and forth have always been great. When he was on the show, it was like talking. I said this to him. I'll say it to you. It was like talking to the gamer friend I didn't know I had. Like, it was one of the best experiences.
Yeah. One of the things I want to say something, Crafty Matt said something about, in case it wasn't started, I purchased Savage Rifts last year. Sounds like there was some sort of ordering issue. Please contact support at peginc.com, PEG, Pinnacle Entertainment Group, peginc.com. You can also find it on the Peg Inc. Web store. They are great. We have great people that can help you get any sort of issues fixed if you received the wrong product or something. But the revised box has a pre-order. Yeah, Yeah, double check with them if you tried to order something and you got the wrong thing. Because last year, if you ordered it from Pinnacle, you should have gotten the Adventure Edition. But yeah, if you have any questions, please contact them and they can help you out. Really good people will bend over backwards to make sure you have a good experience.
I ordered. I had Suede for a little bit, but I did order the Tomorrow Legion stuff. It was either late last year or early this year. I can't remember. I think it was early this year. No problems. I've got. Well, they're down there somewhere. But yeah, I read through them. But the thing is, like I said, I don't understand the differences. Like I was trying to read it, like see if I find the differences here. I'm like, I don't know it well enough to know the differences.
Yeah, and Doc Fearsome has a question about the map
Yep.
regions. That's all. I mean, this is all I didn't even know this. Kevin and Wayne knew exactly where Lone Star was, like the Lone Star complex. Like they told me basically grid coordinates. I'm like, why and how? You know what I mean? But most of that map came from careful reading of material, like meticulous. And it actually took me like dozens of hours just to write the emails to send to Alita to do the map art. I mean, she was great, and we had to do revisions because Kevin or fans would come back and say, "Hey, I think you missed a detail here," or "What about this?" or "Hey, I think this was updated in a different book," or we'd have to deconflict things like that. Sometimes it was weird too because you go look on Google Maps and it describes a town being off the edge of this river at this spot, but the real world town is like 50 miles to the east. So it's the post-apocalyptic town that's named after it, 50 miles to the west. And that stuff gets crazy, right? But all of this is what you saw a minute ago. That is the like chapter approved, to use a Games Workshop term. That is the official, most highly detailed map of North America.
And I can definitely bring that up again if we need it for anything.
This is so Savage Rifts, especially since, and I mean, again, no shade or anything to the guys before me, but especially since I came on, my number one thing has been make sure that Kevin and I, that we get the details right between us, right? So if you go read Empires of Humanity, there's lore update in there, right? We filled in some of the gaps of what happened to Fort Pinnacle and the Coalition Navy during the war with Siege on Tolkien and the war against Free Quebec. Well, what happened in there, right? Because I was updating the timeline to 109 PA. It's all official canon, right? So a lot of people enjoy the Savage Rifts books, like Empires of Humanity or Atlantis and the Demon Seas, because it updates the timeline and is a great way to read, kind of like the Rifts Aftermath book. It's a great way to update and refresh and have a high level overview of stuff, because it's not designed to replace it. That's one thing that I want to put out there too, is Savage Rifts was never designed to replace the Palladium books. And in fact, at the beginning of every book, any of the world books, we actually tell you which Palladium books those books were sourced from. So if you want to go buy Juicer Uprising, if you want to go buy, Coalition War Machine, go do that. Or for players that aren't familiar with that are new to Rifts. Yeah, that's how all of that happened. But all those details are the best we can get it. And I think they look great. The maps look great.
Yeah, the maps do look nice.
If you're a fan of Rifts, that's all official. That's all canon. That's all lore. Grab it, enjoy it, have fun with it, because it's all Rifts.
All right. Well, since we kind of generally went over your background, your history, what you do for Palladium, what you've done for Pinnacle Entertainment. Obviously, if you have any more to add to that, go ahead and throw it in.
I think that answers it, right? I mean, yeah. And then the one thing I will say is, and Shane said this at when we were at Expedition Deadwood, for Savage Rifts, I can basically do everything except for the art itself. And I think that's one of the things that Kevin also really likes, is he's like, it's someone that, because Shane doesn't have to worry about, and he doesn't know, he's not a huge Rifts fan. He's not some old school Rifts fan. So he doesn't have to worry about Savage Rifts, right? I contact him. We work things out when we need to, but usually that's pretty smooth. And then, so in a company like Pinnacle or Palladium or something like that, where you have these really creative people, they're usually the bottleneck to get things done. And so that's why it's an advantage to have somebody that can handle all these things, because then it loosens up that bottleneck. And I think Kevin saw the same thing and was like, okay, great. He was actually worried about Pinnacle feeling like he was poaching me. There's no feelings like that at all. But I think that's one of the things that made me,
Well, it's good
to
because you
him
have an
that.
expertise right in that realm. I'm not saying that's your only expertise, but you definitely have an expertise in riffs. And if
Right.
Pinnacle didn't have it, and let's be fair, Kevin's working on like 19 different settings and so forth. Who knows what? I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I don't know if he remembers everything that he writes when you've got all. Because I know I don't when I'm writing stuff.
Well,
And
no,
I can,
we have to. It's funny. I've only written a few books now, but no, I pick up my own books and reference. I was like, I know I put it in here. Where did I put it? And no, you have no for sure. You got to go look up your own stuff. It was funny. What was it? I made fun of him at, I think it was the Palladium Open House, like one, or was it an interview? It was an interview. He said he was like, well, that's why I have all these books. So I don't have to remember it. I can look it up.
Didn't Einstein say that? Wasn't he the one that quoted, why memorize anything that can be written down?
That sounds great. I haven't heard that one before, but yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the experience, right? So, but anyways, and we're excited because right now we're both working in parallel. He's working on a project, I'm working on a project, right? And that's one of the nice things too, is to try and move forward. We can get to that whenever we get to the right questions for that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, let's dive in. So you're not here for 7 hours because I've been known for 8-hour streams before. Let me first read this super chat.
I'm here.
It's awesome. I appreciate that. Patriotic Assault for $25 says informative interview so far. Well, thank you very much. I've derailed myself multiple times, so the fact that somebody thinks that, I'm happy for. And yeah, we're definitely getting a lot of good information. And same thing I told Kevin, I'll tell you. Didn't get a chance to talk to you behind the scenes so much about this, but if there's anything that you want brought up, I don't care, good, bad, or otherwise, that you want brought up with relation to this, I will make time to make sure that you can say it. So whether it's about a game, about risk, about you, whatever it happens to be, because yeah, I get a chance to have a conversation with you, but I also want to make sure that you're putting out there, man, I really wish people would ask me this question. Nobody ever asked me this. Well, guess what? Right. I will ask it for you.
Right.
But all right, I have a bunch of things starred. You knocked out a couple of them already. What I want to do is I want to go back here. So I have some notes on a note card to make sure I lead into some of this, right? So, that nerds, I said this already a couple times, nerds have strong opinions about things. Like we had edition wars for D&D. We just talked on Friday night about who rolls the right dice, all this nonsense that nerds like to get into. Well, one of the strong opinions is a lot of us feel that companies like WotC didn't respect Dungeons & Dragons. Again, not asking you to comment on that. I don't do that with business folks, but
I don't want to throw shade or anything.
But right, and we don't expect. But in the nerd community, there's a lot of us who's like, what, we just don't feel it respects their tradition. So I think you can understand that there's some consternation. And I would even say a misunderstanding, because Kevin was on here and said it directly to everybody who's probably watching now. And I know the answer you're going to give, but just to assuage people's, is Savage Worlds taking over Palladium and we're never going to see Palladium again when Kevin's gone?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm not like,
Can
I'm
you
not, yeah.
write that down?
Like, I don't know. I think I have written it down in multiple places on the internet,
Right.
but it's in multiple YouTube interviews that you can go watch right now. But maybe I need to put something on my own page. I don't know if I'm saying watch my YouTube channel. I haven't posted.
I don't know what else you have to do in order to convince people of that, because I've watched multiple interviews. Kevin was on like it's not taking over, but people.
So I'm not like Shane's like illegitimate love child, secret love child or something that's come in to infiltrate, execute order 25 or whatever. And suddenly I murder Kevin and, we print everything for Savage Worlds. It's that's not it at all. In fact, I get this question a lot too, is, the other thing I'll say, that's funny. See, I try to state something clearly, and then people are like, "Oh, he took too long to answer." The other thing that people will ask me is, they're like, "Well, do you guys want to do Savage Beyond the Supernatural? I mean, like, even would you license, right? Like Savage Beyond the Supernatural, like would I work on a Savage Beyond the Supernatural, or a Savage Nightbane, or a Savage Phase World, or something like that?" No, I have no interest in doing that myself. I mean, if someone really we're open to having conversations. If someone really had a company that had some products under their belt and they wanted to do something like that as a license, maybe we could have a conversation. But I have no interest in doing that. And Savage Worlds is Shane's. Shane has Savage Worlds. It's a great system. I love it. It's I have a lot of fun with it, right? I had a ton of fun with it. And but I mean, just to be honest, Palladium's mine, right? Why would I want to do Savage Worlds, right? This is what I enjoy. I've got the chance to be Kevin's business partner. This is ours to decide the fate of. Why would we want to switch over to some other rule system? No, I'm actually more of a Steiner kind of guy. So
And in an old play-by-mail game, again, dating myself, I know in an old play-by-mail game, I was the house lord for House Steiner.
I'm a big Steiner Davion, join the houses.
No, got to be the good guys.
I just read those books and they were so good when I was a kid, and but anyways, yeah, that's I mean, I like Savage Worlds, right? I love people that work there. I mean, a lot of them are really good friends. But I don't, we don't have any interest in ditching the Palladium system or something.
So I'm going to speak out of turn here for a second because Heathen Dog doesn't agree with me on this one, but I like Savage Worlds as well. The only thing that and this is true for any game. This has nothing to do with Savage Worlds itself. It's just Savage Worlds seems to be the second biggest one that's dealing with this outside of 5e. I personally, this is just a personal thing, I can't stand it when IPs go to 5e or like I like Savage Worlds and I like Savage Worlds Solomon Kane, its own I forget the superhero one, but I like its own IPs.
Necessary Evil.
Was it? I thought it was a date. I thought it was I could be wrong.
There might be another one, right?
But I mean I generally like those, but whether it's Big Eye Small Mouth going to 5e or Simbaroom going to 5e or let's use my game in the past, Earth Dawn. There's a Savage for no. You play Earth Dawn or get the, that's again personal opinion.
Yeah, people. So I've had that question too, and we have no interest in going to 5e either. So just be clear.
It's good. I've just always believed that if you're going to play it, if I'm going to play Rifts, I'm going to play Rifts. I don't want to play Savage Worlds Rifts, but at the same time, if I'm going to play, was it Deadlands? I'm going to play Savage Worlds.
Right. And I think that's right because you have some of that Deadlands feeling bleed over into the entire Savage World system because it's a very pulpy system that comes from, so fans who may not know, Deadlands is a weird West with undead and magic and evil setting. And one of the things that it does that's really cool is you use a poker deck for initiative. You use poker chips for all different types of bennies and stuff like that for rerolls and other things to keep track of things in the game. That works really well and it's very thematic, right? It also sets a different tone. So for instance, when I'm running my Palladium Rifts game, it feels completely different from my Savage Rift games that I play.
Thank you for saying that.
And because, guess what? I like to do things like I make my guys track food. Like we use Discord and, they have to track, have a running list of their supplies. If you don't have it in your pocket, if you don't have it in your item list, you don't have it. Right. And one of my big things is, we talk about if they're going to make a skill roll, we'll discuss what modifiers there might be, or if there's equipment, or they'll kind of role play how they're going to approach the situation. I might give them a bonus or a penalty, and then I'll tell them what the percentage is and they roll. And if they don't succeed, they didn't succeed. Right. Other times I'll do this is totally verboten in Savage Worlds because in Savage Worlds you have bennies which can allow you to reroll stuff. That's a core mechanic of the game. But so you never roll for the player pretty much. It's you just don't do it because the player needs to know whether they succeeded or not so they know whether they want to spend their benny or not. Right. Well, in Palladium Rifts, I roll for the player all the time. I'm like, you're gonna have a 55% chance of trying to listen in on someone's radio communications with your skill. And now I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna narrate what your experience is. But you don't know whether you succeeded or not, right? That's the point. Sometimes. And so I run the two systems completely differently. They feel completely differently. They're both in the same world, but I don't know, it's kind of like watching Abrams Trek versus the old Star Trek movies, right? or the new generation Star Trek movies. They have very different feels, and
Right.
even though they might be technically it's the same Enterprise with Captain Kirk or whatever, right? In an alternate timeline, but it feels totally different.
Well, no, but
than
see,
the
that's
original
one of the
series,
things
right?
that when I get into debates or arguments over this concept, like, oh, it's still riffs. Like, no, it's not, because riffs to me is a feel, or whatever game we're talking about. Again, I'm just mentioning riffs because we're having this conversation here.
Sure,
But
absolutely
but,
right.
but it's not the same game. I have played Earth Dawn and no, I'm not going to drink every time I say Earth Dawn. I got a guest on.
So
But
system is one of the things that John Wick says that I like, because I met him and all we've ever talked about is game design. Every time we've met up, that's what we just start talking about game design. But one of the things he says is system is setting, and in a lot of ways that's very true because the game system dictates how you're going to experience that world.
Mhm.
And so that's super important. And so, I think you can still technically have the same setting, but a system's going to give it a different flavor, right?
Right.
If I wanted to go super hard, I mean, if I wanted to play riffs in Savage Worlds the way I play riffs in Palladium, I think people would like have a fit. Um because I like a really gritty survival, limited resources type of game.
I say about
Um
95% of everything you've said on the stream today makes like you and I are in complete agreement. Like,
Well, I mean, it's I can't, I
that
had
never
that.
happens though. I think I would be worried if I were you.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it's just I'm just being honest, and I tried. That's why, again, that's like I said, that's why I introduced the different power levels, the campaign power levels,
Mhm.
to try out different things, encourage people to try different things. Say, here's the setting rules, but you can turn these on and off, right, in Savage Rifts to suit your liking, and yeah. I did one of the questions that was interesting that I saw. I would like to throw something out.
Okay.
It's a little way back. It's CBK Ply. He said, "Question: Is there a setting or genre that Sean would like to add Palladium?" Um,
That's another one I had started.
okay, this is one that when Kevin asked me to join, because I'd been telling him what I wanted to launch. I've been sounding two different settings off of him. Use him as a sounding board for two different settings I wanted to do. And so, yes, we would love to do that. It's probably not the most important thing right now, but I have two that I think are I have two that are very fleshed out, very strong ideas for a setting that I think we're going to be good enough
Can we
that I
get a
could
hint?
use my no.
Because I can tell you what I'm looking for from Palladium. I'll
What's
just
that?
openly say
Yeah.
I'm looking for an SDC oriented space opera. Not. I mean, it can include mega damage, but more like, I guess if it's a mega damage, it'd be more like Robotech, where it isn't prevalent everywhere, like Rifts has to be. But I'm talking something more like an actual space opera where I can mimic more
So this
Star
is
Wars or Star
interesting.
Trek.
Right. Okay. So that is not one of the two settings that I want to do.
Dang it.
These are the ones that I want to do. One is similar to stuff that's sort of similar to stuff that's out there. But one of them, no one's done anything like it ever. And I still don't understand how that's possible. But it would be I think maybe there's probably some indie person that wrote something on Drive Through RPG at some point that would be similar conceptually, but I don't know. I've never seen it or heard of it. But you'll know, it'll be like, where did this come from? But Kevin and I consider Phase World to be
Mhm.
something that could be, its own setting or should be supported like a core setting, even though it's technically a Rifts dimension book. So I really love Phase World because I really like the OG Fed versus Xeon Gundam. I like Robotech. I like, you know what I mean?
Right. No, but see,
I like
that's the
giant
difference between you.
robots. I
I
like
actually
Star
like
Trek.
Aliens Unlimited better than. And what's the other book? Was it the Galaxies? Whatever it was called. The other Aliens Unlimited book that came out
Sure.
after.
Well, then you already have your SDC
Yeah.
space game then.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I'm listening. I am interested though. I mean, Robotech had mega damage, right, for a lot of stuff. What does that mean to you when you say
I like the
an
giant
SDC
stompy robots to have
so.
the mega damage, but again, people compare so many things to Rifts, right? Because that's
Right.
that's the one. Well, as much as I like the idea of juicers and crazies and cyborgs, I almost always play a cyborg, and that mega damage concept, whether it's the armor or whatever. I would like most of the stuff to be SDC. Of course, your spaceships aren't going to get hurt. If you're
So
running
you're
around
talking, so you're saying more. I think what I'm hearing is, or I'm interpreting this correctly, maybe, is you want more human characters and
yes.
human stories
Yeah, I'm not
in
going to take a
a
9mm and shoot the Starship Enterprise. I get that. And if it's shooting
right.
you from space, you're probably going to lose a city or something. So I get
Right, but
that there might be.
you don't want the Rift's version of a space opera.
Right.
You want a lower, like a more human space
Absolutely.
opera.
Yep. I
Okay,
might be
thanks.
alone in that. I don't know.
No, I don't think that you necessarily are, and I love that idea too. Because yeah. Anyways, there's a lot of different things I could say there, but yeah, I mean, like, why would we want to license a product if we have our own good ideas,
Right.
So
I actually tried to write some of that earlier last year, but I have too many house rules, and I got confused with what I was trying to incorporate from what was already there for Rifts and Heroes Unlimited, and this I was like, I don't know what I'm writing anymore. I can't reconcile these things the way I want to, and that game kind of dropped off the. Not game, I should say, that system I was going to write because I was going to run it for some people. The people moved on to other things anyway because I hate playing online. I'm just going to go down the list here. I know I have like 16 start questions here. Some of them are about an hour old. I get that, but I'm going to try to incorporate them into like the format I have here. So we're always kind of staying, we're not just all over the place. So we answered the Savage Worlds one, right? If you don't mind, we'll talk about current books. And again, people need to understand that, when things are in the works, they can't always talk about them, but especially specifics because things change. You guys get angry. I get angry, whatever. But let's see what we can talk about with current books. So I'll start with this one. We talked about this a little bit, but this is a direct question from my Discord, which was, does Sean plan to clean up the editing of the books to make it easier for understanding and play?
Yeah. If you take a look at, if you have the Rifter 85, take a close look at the layout in that book. We tried some new things. We weren't sure with some of the digital publishing or printing options if it would look good. For instance, if art goes off the top of a page to the side. I know these sound like technical little things, but it's like I was kind of feeling out the space with it. But for instance, like this, there you go. Sorry, my virtual background gets in the way sometimes. But like, see how that goes right off the edge of the page? We wanted to try stuff like that out to see what our options are. Because obviously if we do something, we've solved the problem or add some detail, we just need to be able to print it. And sometimes you don't really know until you try.
Right.
But if you look at it and you look at another Palladium book, you'll notice that there's slightly different maybe leading between some of the lines and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's little things like that. But yes, we're looking at improving the presentation values of the books as much as possible. At the same time, so before, for any of these types of questions, one of the things I want to emphasize is when I got here, Palladium hadn't had a release for quite a while. And one of the things that blew my mind is there were like 8 to 12 manuscripts, but at least 8 of them were 80%. Like a manuscript is written by a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of someone like Matthew Clements, it could be we consider him an ace writer. I mean, he used to be a staff writer, right? So Kevin likes to, we say 80% because Kevin likes to add 20%, and he might rewrite 20%, right? And
Okay.
And then I would say 80% of the art is done, and cover art's done. And imagine coming and finding out that there's 8 books like that, with 3 or 4 more that are approaching that. That's a huge production backlog.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one thing that I mean, but bring back the Rifter and supporting everything, it is also important. So we brought back the Rifter. That was the first thing I worked on. I kind of got my feet wet while I was learning a lot of things. And also there's like for instance, the production, I won't get into too many details, but it's boring. But the production process at Pinnacle and the production process at Palladium are completely different. Like, for instance, just at the base level, Pinnacle is completely distributed all over the world. There's writers and editors and artists, and designers. There, people are all over the world working from home. Whereas with Palladium, everyone's in a physical meet space in an office. I mean, I could walk and go grab Kevin if anyone wants me to, right? I mean, I could do that if I needed to, right? So it's very different just in that format. The other thing is their production process is I would say it's very traditional. It's designed around a traditional production flow where you lay out a book at the very end, right? Whereas when I'm writing stuff for Pinnacle, I'm writing into InDesign. So I know exactly where the text is. I know exactly where the art is, or where I can fit a sidebar. I know I need to cut the text because I want this race, like, the ogre race, to be on a 2-page spread or something, right? So it's very different. And so a lot of these little processes, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to make sure I understand the good, stuff of the Palladium method before we try and reinvent anything. But yeah, we want to bring higher level production and stuff to things, but also that kind of thing has to be tempered by, we really need to get this backlog of releases out, because we want to fulfill the products that have already been announced. That's why we're pulling back on announcing anything past that horizon, because we want to get to the point where we're just announcing things that are sure things to get gamers ramped up for the right amount of time. People will get frustrated if a product's announced and it's not out in 3 months, right? Or a Kickstarter is not happening in 3 months. So we don't want to frustrate the fans. And we're taking a new tact with this. But that's just the kind of thing I want to throw in there. As we're listening, I've heard these things. I'm willing to hear anything you guys have to say. We're wide ears open, right? But all of that kind of has to say, like,
there is a process.
There is a process. Trust the process. I don't know.
I hear that every day. I still work for the Air Force. I hear that every day.
So
that was really the only thing I had on current books. Now there are a ton of questions on future publications or potential.
And I guess I could mention current books, right? It's just so everybody knows. This is kind of the plan right now. I did Rifter 85. Kevin finished Coalition Manhunters. Yeah, I know you've learned to wait, but we're going to change that, right? And so Kevin finished Coalition Manhunters. He's wrapping up on Beyond the Supernatural right now, and I am also wrapping up.
Wait, what book for Beyond the Supernatural? Please tell, for the love of God, tell me it's a magic book so they can stop yelling at me.
It's Creature Feature. It's in the weekly update. He's been talking about it. The Beyond the Supernatural Creature Feature. So he's wrapping that up, but it has a lot of GM advice, and that is high on our priority list. Before we're heading off into the wild blue yonder horizons, we do want to get the fans Tomes Grotesque and Beyond Arcanum. So that is something that's very important to us, to getting that out there for y'all. I don't have any release dates or anything, but this is the kind of stuff you can find.
He said it's coming. It wasn't out tomorrow. What the hell?
Right. But I mean, so I just want people to know that Beyond Supernatural is actually a really important product line for us. And then the other thing is, and so I'm working on finishing up Titan Robotics. It's just about to enter final editing and proofreading and layout. And so probably in a week or two, I'll let you know when we're going to be launching a Kickstarter for that. So,
you know what? I was going to wait on this one, but this just popped in. I'll put it in there. I don't understand why a company like Palladium is doing a Kickstarter. Well, before he has to defend the company on this one, this is just the new business model. And I do think that people need to get used to this.
Well, I don't know. So I'm going to, maybe you can tell me what you think a company like Palladium means. How many employees do you think Palladium has? Right? Palladium is, now, it used to be, for a long time, it was number 3 in the industry for like almost 20 years, right? Very consistently. But even then, it was a fairly small company. And so, companies like, say, Wizards of the Coast or, Paizo or something, that's a whole order of magnitude different than a company like Palladium. And so
didn't Paizo just do a Kickstarter or something? I thought one of those guys just did a Kickstarter and people were all freaked out about it. I guess I look at it as like, that's the new business model. Like I don't.
Yeah. So before I even got into the industry, right, before I was ever given a book contract, when I was at that ChupacabraCon, and I was at a panel, and Shane Hensley, John Wick, one of the lead guys on Delta Green, and what's his name? The guy that wrote the new, he's been doing it for years, the Cortex system.
Yeah,
What's his name?
I know the system. I don't know the name.
I can't remember his name right now. But anyways, there's a whole line of these guys, right? These are all. By the way, Chupacabra Con's a cool con to go to if you want to meet a lot of the guys that aren't from the big companies, but all the kind of next in line. But Shane said it, and everyone nodded and agreed, and it was a discussion. But Kickstarter is central to the business model of medium to small. I mean, you can't really get a lot smaller besides being an independent. Like single person, right? So yeah, Kickstarter is central to their business models. And the funny, crazy thing is that Palladium has been surviving without doing, Kickstarters for major product releases. So, it's, and Palladium is in a very different spot from a lot of other companies in the industry for a lot of different reasons. For instance, a whole wide variety of settings and product lines, as opposed to one or two core ones. And the model also does not revolve around, we'll put out a new edition every 5 years, right? Or every 3 years or whatever. And I respect Kevin for all of those things. A company like Palladium, I mean, I don't know what that means. It's, if you want to talk about the creative side of things, we have Wayne helps with editing and layout. We have some other people that do proofreading, but it's just me and Kevin writing the books and designing the books, besides contractors, right? So it's really a tiny company.
I'd be honest, I'm surprised more even larger companies don't do a Kickstarter. One, to get a feel for the popularity of something. I know that some people have a feel, well, that just pushes out the little guy. Well, first of all, I don't like Kickstarter anyway. I like Indiegogo, but that's just, again, personal preference. But either way, whether it's Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or I forget what the third one is now, they help gauge a product as well. Even if you don't back the Kickstarter, I know it's like pre-ordering a video game. I don't pre-order video games that are in early access anymore because I've been burned too many times on that. And I know some people who feel the same way about Kickstarter, but I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a company like Palladium is going to see this as like the initial release. Hey, it's popular. It's still going to be on the shelf, whether it's Drive-Thru RPG or the Palladium store or whatever. It's still going to be there for you to buy, even if you don't back the Kickstarter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I see the Biv says, it just seems to me that Kickstarter for people that don't have the capital to start a book. But I'm old school and don't really understand this stuff clearly. And that's okay. Look, you shouldn't have to worry about all this stuff, right? But here, let me put this out there, and I'm about to put this into the Kickstarter, right? When I'm preparing it, probably later tonight. But because you have to get a lot of things set up, and it'll take some time if you're going to do a decent setup. It'll probably look like this. It's me doing it, anyways.
Oh, wow.
I'll do my best, guys. Sorry, but the point is, for instance, inflation's insane right now, and I'm not even talking about printing costs or paper costs or delays or any of that. And Palladium does all their printing domestically to shorten delivery times and all types of stuff, right? As imperfect as it may be, that's actually way better than a lot of what's happening in the industry because of the logistics log jams from overseas. So the part of the thing about doing a Kickstarter is we can reach, we're probably going to hit the core audience anyways, right? But we can reach people that maybe thought Palladium went under 20 years ago, right? With the Crisis of Treachery. We can reach people that are new eyeballs, right, that have never heard of Rifts or Savage Worlds or Palladium Books or any of that stuff. We found that happen consistently with the Rifts or Savage World stuff. We have people that never had heard of Rifts, never heard of Savage Worlds, either one, and they found a Rifts for Savage Worlds Kickstarter and got in, and that's great, right? It's discoverability. The other thing is if we can really carefully gauge and have a good Kickstarter, one of the things is the printing at scale. So if we only do 500 copies of a book, or we only do 1,000 copies of a book, or we do 10,000 copies of a book, or 4,000, right? The cost per book, you have to order that all at the same time. It can make it could make or break a product, right? And if we don't want to immediately start, we've been, doing our best to hold off on racing prices as much as we can, even though it's crazy right now. And for instance, this Kickstarter, that's one of the reasons that it's really important to me, is so that we can keep the cost as low as possible for the print run of Titan Robotics. And that's my goal And that's part of the reason why I'm like, I just need to bite the bullet and do this. Kickstarters are a pain in the butt. They take a lot of work. They take a lot of effort. They do.
There's so much behind the scenes that people don't understand that go on with those things.
Right. So that's and it does kind of act as a pre-order system. It also helps get attention, and it's easier to organize who gets, the different, say, the big fans can get their their special editions and stuff like that, and we can offer other cool things. But yeah, and part of it's just about getting the word out there. Yeah, that's
So,
I hope that answers the question.
So because you've read my notes apparently, and I didn't even send them to you, I'm going to skip a couple of questions and we'll come back to them, because this is going to segue right into how has the paper shortage impacted Palladium? That was actually a question that was brought up.
It's been a big deal. It was funny because the Rifter 85 was finished 6 weeks or more before, I think, if I remember correctly, before Coalition Manhunters. Yet people got those books essentially at the same time. And we actually split the prints between different companies. And one of them, one of our printers, because Kevin's been using them for 30 years, they did they made room in their very cramped print schedule with paper that we're like begging them, do you have the paper we need, right, kind of thing, like, please set some aside and don't give it to the big companies. We've been with you for 30 years. I mean, seriously. And then they did a print run just so that we could have Coalition Manhunters and Rifter 85 at the Palladium open house in April. It wouldn't have been possible otherwise, right? And so that's an awesome thing they did. That was awesome. That was great. The fans, one of the people that works there, and I think his grandson or his son, they came to the open house. They actually came to the open house, and when we said that, the crowd started clapping for them. It was so crazy, but it's true. Right now, it is kind of insane out there, and that means that we also have to be very agile. We have to, adapt, improve, adapt, overcome, all this stuff, So that's been really tricky right now. The tabletop industry, just like every industry right now, is feeling the bite of inflation and logistics issues and supply issues. One of the things with the paper shortage, a lot of people don't realize is, so since the pandemic, the mail, ordering stuff from Amazon, getting stuff delivered, has skyrocketed, right? Well, guess what? Now these companies, these paper mills, can make more money making cardboard for boxes than paper for books. Then here's another thing: all the college textbooks, right? They literally ran out of the stuff that they make the hardcover from.
Oh, the backing?
There's shortages on that. So then all of them went to the perfect bound format. They said, we can just do a soft cover. Now suddenly an entire major player in the print industry, all of their orders have cascaded into our sector of the print industry.
Ladies and gentlemen who have been on my Discord complaining about perfect bound books, you can't find them anymore. Well, now you know why.
So this is like, it's crazy. And when Kevin, in the weekly updates, if you haven't signed up for it, please go to palladiumbooks.com and sign up for the weekly update. You can you can get updates from me and Kevin. A lot of times my updates are just, mention this, or I said this, and or whatever. But it's a great way to or you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook to see them. We're posting those. Wayne's doing a great job posting those every week as well when we do the updates. Another way to get to them. But you can read about a lot of this, but it really is, and it consumes time. I mean, this isn't like, it was an hour out of a day one day. I mean, this can consume one or more days a week sometimes, because and then there's also shipping. I mean, there's all types of issues, right? And so unfortunately, when Kevin and I talk about running the business is a lot of work, it is, right? I mean, I wish we could. So true story, when Kevin writes in the weekly update, Sean and I were excited this weekend to just write. He's not lying. Monday through Friday, we can be so busy sometimes I can't get anything else done but the immediate business needs and stuff. And so I get excited that I can write on Saturday and Sunday. It's crazy. It's crazy. And
I
a lot of
understand
that stuff picks that up, right? It just, all these economic conundrums and logistics conundrums just increase that overhead.
I don't have to worry about anything like shipping or anything like that, but even just, people don't understand like the YouTube side of it, right? It's not just I show up here and all right, I'm going to talk with Sean and then I'm going to go and spend the rest of my day with my wife or whatever. And like, no, I've got video editing. I got to prepare for this.
Right,
I've got
right. And videos are so much work. They really are. Yeah.
Yeah. Even with as much cheating as I do with those videos, because so my background right now, I was a graphic artist in the Air Force, as I mentioned before, but part of that also led towards a little bit of video editing when the Air Force didn't know what it's going to do with my career field. And now I work in video conferencing. This is actually my job in the real world. I am a video conferencing engineer. Anyway, so there's a lot that goes on in the background. Like if I have 3 hours stream with Sean, I can guarantee you I'm working until 10 o'clock tonight with just getting everything situated and how it has to be advertised and how it has to be, I don't want to say edited because I don't necessarily go in and do hard editing, but just snipped apart, put together, and how am I going to
attaching your outro and your intro, and
right, the annotations that go in the description area. Oh, let's get the tweet ready. Let's get all this nonsense. So yeah, it's like there are always these little things. Now, if you have to add on, okay, I've got to worry about a shipper, and I've got to worry about getting this order done right, and I've got to. I mean, you've done paperwork for the military, so you know that anytime paperwork comes around, it's never like just fill this out. It's 2 minutes. No, it's not.
Yeah. I worked on my commander's staff for 1.5 years, so I've seen it all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you because my field is so niche in DoD in the military video conferencing. I'm like the only person who knows how to do it. I mean, there are others like me, but wherever we are, we're the only people who know how to do it. So it's like we rely on you. Like, wait a minute. So I'm doing the tier 0, the tier 1, the tier 2, and the tier 3. Oh, and the Form 9s and.
So just for a retrospective, right? Before Kevin was pulled back into the day-to-day management of Palladium, in the late 80s, early 90s, when he could spend 4 days a week writing, that's when that's when books were coming out every other month, right?
It's kind of the golden age, not just of Palladium, but I think of games.
Oh, it was a gaming golden age. But my point is just that. That's my thing. I feel like now I say this and I truly believe it, but I understand people don't agree with me, but I think Kevin is the Stan Lee of role-playing games. He's created so many different worlds and so many amazing characters that have such wide breadth. It really kills me to see him have to go do anything in the warehouse. It kills me to have to see him having a hard time focusing because he's distracted by this other business matter or that matter, and he's juggling all these different things every day. And I try to take as much as I can off of his plate. That's like my number one goal, right? But that's part of what we're trying to do is also if we can, as we are and we have been, rebuilding a lot of things and processes with the company and putting out more products, that gives us more leverage to hire people to take some of that stuff off of our plate as well, so that we can focus more and more on production. So that's one of the things I will say. If we appreciate everyone's support. For Christmas surprise packages are coming up, right? Titan Robotics.
Oh, we all love them.
Beyond the Supernatural creature feature is going to be going to the printer very soon. So backing all of those things help us have the ammo to make the changes and improvements that we want to make to see Palladium. I think for Palladium to retake its rightful position in the role-playing game industry, but that's my opinion.
I will tell you reasons why I love Palladium so much, even if I'm not the Rifts guy, so to speak, is it doesn't matter if it's Palladium Fantasy. It doesn't matter if it's Heroes Unlimited. Again, Heroes Unlimited is not my jam because I don't do comics. I'm not a big superheroes person, but it doesn't matter if it's Heroes Unlimited or Palladium Fantasy or After the Bomb, whatever. The lore, the setting, and how... And I'm not just talking the words on the pages. I'm just talking like how you read it, how you fall into it is the best in the industry. And to me, it always has been the best in the industry. Say what you want about a rule here, say what you want about a game there, but just generally speaking, the lore has been bar none the best.
I'm right there with you. I'm biased, but
I'm biased apparently too. So have you looked at partnering with publishers to do print on demand? So for example, if we buy something from, so one of the things that I'm not a big PDF person.
Like drive-through RPG?
Right. So I'm not a big PDF person, but I know that if I order from Palladium Books, I'm going to get the hardcover, which is my preference. However, I do like having the PDF in the background as well, for like when we're going through our overviews on, RPG Digest or something. So if somebody were to order something from, say, Drive Through RPG, and I can tell you right now, anybody who says Lulu, you're wrong. I had my account terminated from Lulu. Don't use Lulu to do this. Just warning you. I can't go get the books printed.
Well,
So,
what books are it that you want to get printed that Palladium doesn't sell from our web store?
well, no, I'm just saying, I'd like to get a PDF and a print copy. Or this is less about me, and this is more about other folks.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If you want to get both.
Yeah. Instead of having to pay twice, is there a way that somebody can, obviously it's going to cost more, but just go to.
No. We've heard the suggestion. I totally. Thanks for explaining that. Right now, you can get PDFs through Drive-Through RPG, and you can get physical hard copies from Palladium. We do want the store. It's actually a store functionality issue. We've been looking really hard at this, but that's something that I hope we can have resolved with a store update. That's like I don't know if that's like a book release, but we are looking at, right. We can't do that in the middle of, like, say, the Christmas season, which is a big time for Palladium, right? But we are looking at refreshing and updating the store, and that is one of the big things we want to do, is be able to offer an option where you can get a bundle of both of them, and so you have a discount of, or whatever. So yeah. No, I think that's a great idea, and I appreciate you talking about it. It just reiterates, a lot of stuff. Kevin and I have plans, but when someone says, I want this, or this is important to me, that lets us know, okay, we want to make sure we do that. That is a very important thing to follow through on.
Yeah, I find myself having to buy it twice, and I don't sit here, I'm not going to do it then. I know some people are like that, but I do find it a little frustrating. Like, okay, I'm waiting for the book to come, but I've got to get the PDF so that I can show it here, if I don't already have it. And it's just having something that we can get print on demand. And to be fair, I think most people understand that a print on demand is going to be a touch lower quality than getting it directly from the Palladium store. Like, that's,
well, the thing is print on demand. It's not going to be as good a quality, and in general, I mean, we sell it hard copy, so why would we want to do print on demand? And it's just because then it's going to be more expensive and lower quality, and we can't control the quality then either. We can't control the shipping or customer service. We get a lot of notes, by the way, if you haven't used the Palladium books.com, our store. And if you ever need help, you can go put in a help desk ticket, or if you have suggestions for us, doesn't even have to be something else. You can put in a help desk ticket through the Palladium Books website. And we're happy to have those. We appreciate them. Or you can post on our forums. But then the other thing is I've gotten, some of my friends have even told me they ordered something. And for instance, our new warehouse, Lord of the Warehouse, we call her Crystal Willard. She packs things very carefully, very well. So that's one of the other advantages, is we can know what kind of packing and packaging. They've been doing this for 40 years, right? So Kevin knows all the ins and outs. We order specific kind of boxes and packing materials, and you can get your stuff, and we know you're going to have a good end result as the consumer.
Prices are better than everyone. I think bang for buck. I agree with that.
And we're trying to keep it down as much as we can. And again, that's why, for instance, the Titan Robotics Kickstarter is going to be a big deal, because if we don't do that, it could push up the price of the printing costs of the book a lot. So
there hasn't been a lot of negativity, but I know there's a lot of questions. So let's get a positive comment out there. Your love for the product is really reassuring. I agree with that.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm having a hard time following the the comment section while talking and not being dumb.
I get sidetracked.
Just if I pause, people think I'm like, well, you paused too long on that answer.
Yeah, right. I do it to myself all the time. Be like in the middle, like some sort of rant or something. Like, let's do this. Let's do that. Oh, okay. Wait, what was I talking about? I just like, damn it, I'm old. We'll stay in this category here, which is, are you going to keep the, this is, no, I want to get back to that one. We're talking about things that Palladium can do now. So are there any plans for Palladium to support virtual tabletops? And is there any one in particular, Foundry, that you guys would do?
How to answer this? Not that we're ready to discuss. I will say, I've really enjoyed Pinnacle's support of Savage Rifts through Roll20, and I've used it on I've used Roll20, I've used Fantasy Grounds, I've used Foundry. My favorite personally is Foundry. I love rolling the dice.
I think Foundry is the best. Again, bang for buck. Yeah.
Yeah, and as someone who studied like interface design and stuff, I think they really have something sharp going on there. The team, the virtual tabletop development team that Sigil Entertainment has, that's working on Savage Rifts. I know one of the guys is one of my writers that I really like. We've gamed together a lot too. Just great people. But for Palladium, I don't have I don't have an answer for that right now.
Oh, Palladium's huge. Also, there are lots of bells and whistles and little minutia parts that all have to work together. I mean, hell, even making a character sheet that you can form fill, right, is difficult when it comes to the Palladium.
Right. So, and the other thing is people want a lot of things. We know a lot of the things that people want, right? We are listening. And part of the trick before was just Kevin didn't have the bandwidth to do it, right? And so I'm here. We're rocking and rolling. And some of these things, if I told you exactly what we want to do, which I'm not, but it would make sense why we're going to do things in certain orders. And so, that's part of the thing too, is, for instance, like getting through this logjam of books. I mean, that's a priority one. It'd be really nice to have virtual tabletop support, but guess what? I run riffs on Discord with a die roller, and we're great, so, I'm not saying that I don't want to support virtual tabletops. I think they're great. I also love tabletop gaming and wargaming and tactical wargaming. And when you're, well, one of the things I love about Savage Worlds and Palladium, but with Savage Worlds, it's very easy. It's built to, distances are measured in inches. It's very easy to switch between, a tactical map and then a narrative gaming and then back and forth, and things like that are great. So yeah, we would like, that is something that we definitely have on our radar, but it's not like some people would say, well, you don't know how to run a business, or this is bad for the business model. And it's like, well, I no, I mean, honestly, but from our point of view, there's very good reasons why we're taking the approach we're taking. Maybe let's talk again in a couple of years.
All right.
I know it sounds like a long time, but I got like 8 books to get out. So
it's a long time until you start writing your own stuff. I mean, like I said, I've been trying to write my own for quite a while here, and people are like, when are you going to get done, Max? Did you say it was going to be done in 2020? Well, maybe 2025. No, leave me alone. All right. Let's see.
Right, and I will say another thing that did slow me down. We didn't want to freak anybody out, but I got COVID really bad December 15th or something of last year. And so I was out for 4 months.
Oh, wow.
I was struggling with long COVID until basically the beginning of August. So that also has slowed down my production process. And also, just so you know, I'm also juggling 2 big product releases for Savage Rifts as well. So,
you're gainfully employed.
I am very gainfully employed, but sometimes people will say, well, why isn't Titan out yet? Well, that's why, right?
Because all you do is you get up at 6 a.m, type, and go to sleep, right? I mean, there's nothing else in the world, the business of your life that you do.
Matthew Clements already wrote it. We have the raw edition.
There you go.
The final?
Yeah, so like when I was a graphic artist in the Air Force, people would do that stuff all the time. I need this brochure. I need this poster done. Like, I need it done today. It's like, yeah, that's not possible. Like, but I mean, all you do is just throw some graphics on a picture. Come on back. And I'd actually bring them to the back office. I'd have them sit down and they'd start watching us work. And like an hour and a half later, I got to get back. Like my commander's waiting for me. I'm like, well, so you do realize that now this isn't going to take a half hour to do because we've already been here an hour and a half. You see what I'm doing, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, when can you have it done? Probably Wednesday. All right, fine. Because sometimes you just have to show them.
They don't know the process. Yep. And that's one of the things I want to say to the fans. Look, Kevin and I, we genuinely want to get you the products that you want because we love it too, right? We're not trying to delay anything. We're not sitting on our butts. We're actually working really hard, believe it or not. And just want to let you know, we are doing our best to fulfill all these different promises and to navigate and survive through the current economic craziness and logistics craziness the best we can. So just
absolutely.
I appreciate your patience. I know we can't always explain to you exactly why things take so long, but I hope that I've been able to help you see a little bit more during this interview.
And to be fair, just to the fact that he's not, you get this as an intelligence analyst, I get that, but the sometimes the reason you're not told things is because it would cause more of a fervor, not because you think they're lying, even though that will always come up, or that you think that there's something that they're not telling. It's just literally the fact that if we tell you these things, you're not going to understand it. It's not that you're stupid, but unless you understand the entire process, like he was talking about, or the flip side of that is if we tell you why it's late, you're not going to like the answer and you're just going to freak out. So we're just going to tell you no. And I say we, I mean, I don't work for them, but
No, I know what
saying.
you mean. Right. Absolutely. Right. And sometimes it's not a fun answer. Sometimes the answer is, why didn't we get that book? Because, again, this is great because I don't have to be specific about any specific book. Right. But it could be just because the manuscript sucked, or the manuscript was poorly written, or it never got finished, or whatever. Right. So, or, we didn't have, it's not in the release schedule, whatever it might be,
That's another great segue. So will you accept art and writing submissions, and will people get paid for them?
Yes, that's what the Rifter is for. So submit for the Rifter. The pay rate is not the same as like what we would pay.
What? I'm not a full-time employee now?
Right. The Rifter is actually designed specifically so that you can get something under your belt. You can get paid for your art, whether that's, physical art or writing, and things like that. And this is a great way. I know quite a few people, actually, like one of the guys on my Savage Rift development team, he wrote a Rifter. It was the first time he got his foot in the industry. And now if he wanted to, he wouldn't have to have his full-time day job.
That's awesome. Let's see. Do I want to hit this one or do I want to hit that one? Let's do this one first. This is something I didn't even know about until somebody posted this on my Discord the other day. Are you going to keep the tradition of donating a copy of all Rift's books published under him to Chino? I guess that's California Institute of Men.
We are not changing any of the. Kevin has a lot of different things that he actually donates to and has been donating to for years. I don't think that any of that's going to change. Now, if you're involved with a specific charity that has been, doing things with Palladium, and you see a change or whatever, please contact us through the help desk. But we're not changing anything like that. No, Kevin and I like to be generous with good causes.
I know I've received in the past, and I can't remember if it was Hungry Ewok that sent it to me or Nerdy Ogre, one of them, but it was a pretty long message, basically stating essentially that hey, Kevin just said, hey, I got this from a military guy, here, you take it. And he was like, wait, what? Here you go. I'm not going to get into all of it because I don't remember the entire email and I'll misrepresent it. But essentially, it was a donation because somebody had passed away and said, "Look, it's going to go to somebody who's using it that we respect. Here you go." And it was basically from military to military, if I understand it correctly.
Kevin really likes to support military. I mean, if I didn't know, I would have thought he was a veteran, right? Because he, people that are veterans, you expect, a certain amount of support and things like that. But yeah, Kevin is very, 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 has a lot of respect for that.
Listen to that, veteran. I know a lot of vets play the game because actually my biggest
we do have a lot, right?
Time playing the game was when I was in the Air Force. I also know a lot of people deployed, believe it or not, play a lot of Palladium deployed. Yeah. And that surprised me when, but I'm going to ask this one now. I'm going to put it on the screen because I have this question on the list anyway, so I may as well just say quick start. That is something that a lot of people have been asking for. Some sort of quick start rules, maybe, not all the OCCs, not all the Lore Heroes Unlimited. Good luck with that. But something where it's like just to get somebody started with Palladium so they don't have to feel intimidated by that thick book that everybody tells them is so hard to understand, even though it's not.
Yeah, that's something that is definitely on our radar. We know there's a demand for that. Stay tuned. Those, I can't, again, I want to make sure that we very carefully manage expectations, but we are listening. I think that's very important.
Okay. And I got all these Tomorrow Legion ones that I'm dreading getting to. Have you, this actually kind of came up. Well, no, not this version. Let me ask this in another way. This is something actually I've been kind of not pushing for, but I would love to see. If I have one actual complaint about Palladium system as a whole, sure, it's when I want to mix and match. So first of all, I saw an interview. Well, I think it was the one where you guys announced that that you were on board as like the heir apparent. But I don't like Mutants in Orbit because it has Rift crap in it. I just want the TMNT. Now, to be fair, though, what I actually didn't like about it is like, why are the skill lists different in this side than on this side? Right. They should be unified.
Right. Yeah,
So how about a core unified book of this is how you play the Palladium system, and then everything else after that. And I wouldn't say a 3.0. To me, I'd say like a 2 revised. But then everything after that, here is the Rift setting. Here's the Heroes Unlimited setting. But it still uses hand-to-hand basic is the same no matter which book you pick up. The number of attacks per round is the same no matter which book you pick up. Computer operation skill is the same, except for now the Rift setting might say minus 20 from it because it's a post-apocalyptic setting or something like that. But there's a core unified book, and then everything else is setting from that.
Yeah, kind of like how in, what is it? TMNT, I think Prowl starts like 20% or 30% higher because you're ninjas.
Right.
That's a brilliant idea. Gee, I like that idea. That's a great idea. I'll have to think about it. Man, I should tell Kevin about that.
I'm sure he's heard it before. I think he heard it when he was on our stream last time. No,
we're listening. Thank you. And I'll turn that around. What if we did do something like that? What would people want to see in those books, right? What exactly do you want to see? How do you want it presented, right? That's the turnaround there, right? You can mention it in the chat, but another thing, you go put it on our forums. You can submit help desk tickets. Again, we are listening, and we would love to do all kinds of stuff in the future. So if you have ideas, and the other thing I'll say is sometimes when how do I put this? If we solve a problem, sometimes the fans, I think, are really great at telling us, what problems there are. But sometimes we might solve it in a different way that you might expect. So, just, keep that in mind. But yeah, thank you for expressing that. And I think that, that's something that would be helpful in the future.
Couple of these have already been answered. So pardon me just 1 second here. So I'm not repeating things. All right. So I'd like to know in Palladium. Never mind, this one's been answered as well. It's Beyond the Supernatural magic book. We've already talked about that a couple of times. Tony, I get the hit on that one a lot. Okay, here we go. What changes would you personally? These are just opinions that we're not. Everybody, if he answers this, he's not saying he's doing this. Just if there were any changes that you would make to the Palladium system while still keeping it the Palladium system, what changes would you like to see made? Because let's be fair, no system, I don't care if it's Savage Worlds, D&D, Palladium, Bessem, Degenesis, whatever, no system, Earthdawn's perfect. No, it's not. No system is perfect.
Right. I mean, some of the stuff you talked about are really cool ideas, right? Kind of one ring to rule them all kind of stuff, where you're not going to get big differences between settings or something, even if it was just like an errata document, right? But I don't know. There's a lot of things that that Kevin and I have talked about that we think are, important about the setting. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, I will say, I really love the Palladium system at its core, right? And so, Kevin asked me if it's going well.
Tell him no. Tell him no. God, this Max guy is horrible.
He's like, do you need to be escaped? Yeah.
Something when he was on, we heard like a phone call or something, if I remember correctly. Something happened, like, that's his escape route right there.
Right.
Heathen Dog and I talked about
that. He has the app that tells you, like, it simulates a phone call for somebody. Yeah. But yeah, to me the big thing is I really like the core system, and I don't want to see. I know a lot of people I think would worry like, is Sean going to make this Savage Worlds or something, which is like just the corollary of, or are you just going to print everything in, convert everything to Savage Worlds?
Right. And all those questions were asked multiple times. That's why you only got it once for me, but that is the biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really have any interest in doing that. Right. Because I like the core of the system. I just think there are ways that we could improve presentation, and some of that could be answered through maybe starter sets and things like that. Right. So yeah, I don't want to like talk too much about things that we have planned until they're ready to be announced. So
sure. All right, let me make sure I hit all these ones I want to hit before we just start knocking out the Tomorrow Legion ones. See. Okay, I had this one start. I think we know the answer to this right now.
Oh, sorry, Mar Hawkman. It's not about it's not about needing an alarm. It's about someone that you're with thinking that you have a legitimate phone call and your grandma's in the hospital. You need to leave a situation you want to get out of. Anyways,
So
first of all, my question is Kevin
Kevin
retiring? No. So Kevin's like me. I used to say this. I mean, literally for years. I'm one of those people. Like I always told people that if I retired from say being, because I always thought I was gonna, maybe be like a professor or something like that, or maybe do 20 years in the military or something. I always said, whenever I get done, I'll just write war games or role-playing games or something, right? Just I have something to do, and it's my hobby and all that kind of stuff. Make my hobby my day job kind of thing. Kevin's the same way. For a 66-year-old man, when I got here, I was like, whoa, Kevin has so much energy. He's in here like I would say 75% of the time, once a month or so, he will take a Sunday off. He's here every day, and he's usually here before everybody, and he's one of the last people to leave. And so yeah, I will try to get Kevin to relax a little bit and take weekends off, as we get through this rough economic crunch, and as our plans are enacted and things. But I don't even know if I'll be able to do that, guys. So Kevin is not retiring. Kevin's not retiring anytime soon. He genuinely loves this. If he had more time, he would just write more. I promise you that's what he would be doing. So maybe he would read comic books a little more. He loves comics. Kevin loves comics.
That was his original interest.
He wanted to be a comic, right? He wanted to be a comic book artist, right? And he thought the role playing thing was just a side gig on his own, right? And he did not consider himself a writer and designer for a long time. But no, Kevin is not retiring.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to add on there, you kind of reminded me of, was like I'm a crazy busy person as well, and I learned that from my grandfather. I saw that when he retired from his job, his hobbies kept him busy until the day he died in his 90s, like woodworking and metalworking and so forth.
And that's probably why he lived until his 90s, right? Because he was actively engaged.
My actual experience with that is I used to be on honor guard and drill team when I was in the Air Force. And one of the things that I noticed is that when people got out after 20 or 30 years, especially the ones that got out as chiefs, like 30-year mark, they were dead within 6 months to a year because they had nothing to do. I got my retirement, nothing to do. But the ones that are like, I cannot wait to retire because I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how to fly, and I'm going to do all this. They're still kicking at now in their 80s because my age, like always have something to do. Keep yourself busy.
They've done studies on this, right? It's if people who retire and just sit around, if they could die within a few years, but people who like have a job, or even when they get in their 90s, maybe a part-time job. I know that sounds crazy, but those people will live the longest because they're actively engaged in things. And a lot of age-related stuff is just muscle atrophy, right? You're not doing strength training. You're not pushing your body. And so it just starts to fall apart. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm more busy with Legion of Myth stuff than don't tell work this than I am with my work stuff. And I don't play, even whether it's Legion of Myth or something else, whether it's this game, I don't this hobby, whatever, I don't plan on ending anything. Like I'm just going to keep going forward. I look forward to the day that I can retire so I can finally have time to do what I want. I just need the retirement for that, right? So,
right.
Let's see next on. There's a lot of this, but
let me just throw something out there too.
Sure.
And I've said this to Kevin in earnest quite a few times. One of the things that I'm really excited about is, Kevin didn't call me in here on his deathbed. Kevin called me in here to work with him and be his business partner. And I've told him, if we really do have some weird like Vulcan mind meld when it comes to a lot of things. It's very, very crazy. And a lot of times he'll ask me a question. He's like, just seeing, and then I'll be like, I think we should do this out of this complicated series of answers. And he'll be like, that's exactly what I wanted to do. And it's kind of weird. But the great thing is if he was retiring, that would suck. I'd be just here on my own. I love Kevin. I love the stuff that he creates. I want to see, I want to free up Kevin to write 20 more books, 30 more books, right? More, as many as we can get out of him, right? So that's part of the beauty is that we really do have a really great partnership, and a creative partnership, right? Not just a business partnership, but a really great creative partnership. We get along really well. We see eye to eye, and we're really dedicated to the vision, and it's his vision, right? But I freaking love it, so I'm down. So and he's also all very willing to listen and to consider all different types of ideas. So yeah, that's again, just he's not going anywhere. I want to keep him around as long as I can, and hopefully, medicine will make it happen.
I forgot to read a super chat a long time ago.
Oh,
So
what is I don't care grabs dinner? Is that an inside joke or just?
I don't know, but I'll thank you, the real Monkey Rogue, for $2. I do appreciate it. By the way, for those who don't know, all the super chats go to my Discord. So if you're not sure if you said something or if I say you didn't say something, whatever, it's on my Discord. You can yell at me about it later. There we go. It's hard to answer questions like this, but we'll throw it out there. Are there plans for Rifts Middle East?
There's no Rifts Middle East on the docket right now. Put it
okay, well, that was easy. I know sometimes talking about future plans can be a little hairy. So
I know I saw something earlier. Sorry, I have a hard time again reading the chat while talking.
That's fine. It's my job.
But people ask about California, and I don't think there's nothing official on the docket for that either.
Like this,
but if you read the original world book, I mean, I think San Andreas Fault broke and California, most of it fell into the sea or whatever.
Yes. I mean, what?
So, I mean, it's pretty clear on the Savage Rifts map. I have it over here. You can't see it because of my virtual green screen. And then it's also called the Unknown Shifting Lands. So who knows? But it seems like a weird place.
Well, here, we can show that real quickly. So there we go.
Yeah, you can show it. Yeah, there you go.
Unknown Shifting Lands.
Which is really interesting because I'm actually a big, like I said earlier, a big fan of the Fallout games, and so it's just kind of weird that like this central hub where that lore started is like in Rifts, in this other post-apocalyptic setting. It's completely devoid of detail. So,
all right, Tomorrow Legion. Oh, there's one for you. Was Robertson going to write the Robertson Guide to Adventuring in Rifts?
I don't know. I'd love to. It would, there's if you want to see some of my gaming advice, it's just a couple of pages here in Rifter 85. I did write an article about using Savage Worlds adventures using Palladium Rifts rules. The Savage Rifts adventures with Palladium Rifts rules. It's pretty easy, but if you want to, I did write, so in the second edition of the Savage Rifts Game Master's Handbook, I edited that, and one of the sections that I added was a section called High Octane Horror. So if you check that out, if you want to know about how to do like high-powered horror, at least from my thoughts, that's a section you could check out. I think actually a lot of Palladium Rifts fans would enjoy some of the stuff in the Savage Rifts Game Master's Guide. And in the back, it's got mission generation tables for the Tomorrow Legion. Mm-hmm. But it could be for a mercenary group, right? You can file off the serial number. I don't like Tomorrow Legion. Cool. Or I want to use it, but I don't want, like, I even run campaigns where you're not the Tomorrow Legion, right? So, you're a mercenary company. Okay, well, you can still do this mission, right?
That is honestly one of the things that I remember from, because again, I got the 3 Tomorrow Legion books, or at least the 3 that I knew of at the time, Tomorrow Legion books down there, that I remember from the Game Master guys, like, this is actually pretty good for any group.
No, it is. And I actually had a really good time. They have random dimension generation tables. And ended up, I mean, that's a whole thing, but I've told some stories about it before in an interview, but we had so much fun with there was a ley line storm. I rolled, it created a random rift. I rolled, and what kind of, where do they go? I rolled, and I was like, guys, go grab pizza for 20 minutes and come back. And
do you watch the old Transformers? That reminds me of the old Transformer movies when the Autobots and Decepticons went to this little fantasy world with magic and so forth.
Oh, I don't remember that episode. No,
I think it's
I watched a lot of Transformers as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the Gen 1. It was after the movie, so it was like the second whatever. It's Gen 1, but it went fast. Like, what is this?
Yeah, in my game, I ended up with a Cthulhu invaded 1800s Earth, and I decided that I was like, they were near Louisiana in the game. And I said, well, what if Napoleon never sold the Louisiana Purchase because I mean it was right in Napoleon's time frame. I was like, so I gotta do Napoleon. So yeah, basically Napoleon's court wizard was helping the players get back to their reality, but they had to participate in this massive battle with Napoleon's forces against these chthonic invaders, over, you know, fighting over basically a ley line nexus point at a time of stellar convergence so they could get back home. We had fun.
So here's a positive comment. Please create more books. You made the last 2 Rifters and Manhunter. Make us dream and salivated for more upcoming to be done project.
Well, that's what we're working on, right? So I've actually done quite a bit of proofreading on the side for Beyond the Supernatural Creature feature. I think people are going to really enjoy it, and you can use those monsters with other games as well. And then the Titan Robotics, I think people will really enjoy. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll have that coming in the next few weeks, and then yeah, if you want. Yeah, again, I think that if you want to check out the Savage Rift stuff, it can be a really great reference. The Empires of Humanity that I wrote, Atlantis and the Demon Seas that I wrote. We have new books coming, Land of a Thousand Islands for South America. That'll be coming to Kickstarter, along with Terror on the Dark Frontier, which is a really great adventure campaign. The other thing I will say is if you go check out my books like Empires of Humanity and Atlantis and the Demon Seas, you can see I wrote the plot point campaigns. They have extended campaigns that you can play with your friends. And so I wrote both of those. So if you want, again, you could kind of osmosis see how I wrote a campaign. One of the things about writing is always tough is writing and including what you would do as a game master if you were running it, right? To kind of like pass that on. But yeah, those are other things that you can check out if you want.
Every time you say Empires of Humanity, my ears perk up. I'm like, yeah, oh wait, that's not After the Bomb. Dang it.
No, not the After the Bomb. Sorry, yeah.
Because After the Bomb is my jam. That's what if I were to run anything now, it'd be After the Bomb. I mean, there's some aspects After the Bomb I'm like, you can keep the chimeras. I'm not going to deal with that nonsense. But there's so much of it that I just I've run TMNT the old way, you know, the original After the Bomb so many times that that's where I come from. So
it's funny. I didn't do After the Bomb personally. I've never read it, so you know, I've seen it. I've flipped through.
We covered that this year, much to Heathen Dog's chagrin, because he's not into anthropomorphic animals, and I love anthropomorphic animal games.
I remember I actually saw that one. Yeah, I thought that was really funny. He really doesn't like them.
No, he does not. But so when I did the duck, but I have to say, well, no, I'm not going to get. We have a series on that if anybody cares to watch. We did cover After the Bomb this year. It was great to hear Kevin say that it's becoming more popular. I was like, that's awesome. So then maybe some more stuff will come out
Things
for
go in
it.
cycles, yeah. And we're doing our best to try and support everything that we can. Yeah,
absolutely. So Crafty asked this a while ago, and he was talking about the Savage Worlds first edition versus Suede edition, right? So how do you know if you have the first edition print?
So the main thing is on the cover. Underneath the Savage Worlds logo, it'll say Adventure Edition. That's the second edition. That's the second edition Savage Rift books.
That logo, right?
Yes, it has that logo instead of the the older logo just didn't have that black bar at the bottom. Thank you.
All right, I think we're now leading towards one more. I don't know what this is about. Why did I got Pinnacle, thank you. Entertainment Group change the cover of the Atlantis book to cover up the Altarian's clothing? I don't know anything about that. Or is that a Rifts thing?
Yeah, so the cover of Atlantis and the Demon Seas did have a minor revision made to it. Okay. So it was discussed during the Kickstarter, and they put out a statement about why they were doing it on the Kickstarter. So if you'd like to go read that on the Kickstarter, you can do that. But I'm not going to make another statement for Pinnacle there.
Fair enough. All right. Okay. I keep doing that, so now it's on the screen for a moment. Any last things I want to, because everything else I have is now Tomorrow Legion stuff. So I hope you're ready. Here we go. This is a nice comment. I plan on getting everything Chaos Earth for myself for Christmas. Chaos Earth is where Heathen Dog says, he said, the reasons that I don't like Rifts is because I didn't start with Chaos Earth, because he understands my mindset. He's like, I think if Max here starts with Chaos Earth, he will love Rifts more. And that might be true. I think you should give it.
This is one of my favorite games, actually my favorite game ever. So I would say read this book and then make a decision. I think
Well,
because
I
you
do
said you
have
haven't read it.
I
You
have the
have it.
30th year. I have the 30th year, and I have Rift's Ultimate.
If you don't, but read that one. Read the OG, and just go through that, and just then tell me. Then you can come back and tell me, oh, I get it, or no, I don't get it, and we can have.
Well,
a
to be
discussion.
fair, I kind of felt like I started getting. People have been telling me this for a long time. Max. Rifts is great because you can do anything, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I like limits.
That's not why I play Rifts.
But that's how they always get me, and I'm like, and something doesn't feel right about that because I can do anything. Oh, you can make a dragon. Well, I don't know. I'm not playing Council of Worms again. But you can have this, and don't get me wrong, some of the stuff is really iconic. I absolutely love the concept of juicers. Especially the write-up of the juicer in the Ultimates book, because he writes, hold on, slow your roll here. This isn't just having vast power. This is a character who knows that death is before him.
Right.
And this is why I love when the authors do put that intent in there. I'm like, great. I love the crazies. I just like I've never seen that before, and it kind of makes sense for post-apocalyptic stuff. So there's so much that I love, but then all of a sudden we're fighting bug people up. You took over my hometown with bug people. Now it's coalition. But you just got this weird stuff coming. Oh, and you can take your stuff from Heroes Unlimited in here. It's like if I wanted to play Heroes Unlimited, I'd play Heroes Unlimited. I'm trying to play Rift, and as a younger person, I don't want to say it was confusing, but it's like analysis paralysis type stuff. It's just too much, way over the top. I like controls. I like limitations. I like understanding the setting more. And just for years, I don't hate, by no means am I a hater. It's just, it's not for me. Right. But when Kevin was on here and he's like, yeah, I pretty much designed that because I wanted somebody to be able to play whatever they wanted to play in a setting. I was like, that's what everybody's been telling me, and I didn't like it. Why all of a sudden when you say it, does it make sense?
Well, and for me, the thing that sold me, I remember when I got the book, is reading the this, to me, one of the central parts of the book is Aaron Tarn writing about, this is the state of the world. These are all the different settlements. These are the people who've survived. This is the dangers. That to me was like really killer. Another thing was the prophecy of the the foretold dangers and stuff like that. So the devouring swarm and all this stuff. And to me, to me, Rifts is more like, I mean, I know it has a lot of other things, but to me, it's action horror. It's like Aliens, right? And you might have the big pulse guns and a tank and all this stuff, but it's a lot of times, the Avengers was great. I thought the Avengers series of movies was good too, because it was, again, it's high power, high stakes, right? And that really, I really like that.
Yeah, I'm not into comic books, so like
I'm not into comic books. I'm talking about the movies. I thought the movies were great.
If somebody would have said to me what you're saying right now, because you are speaking to me, because when I played Rifts, especially when I played it when it first came out in the 90s, it was always just how much over the top nonsense can the game master put in there. But if it were run, because this is how I actually run my After the Bomb games, it is a very dark setting. It is not comical. Just because you got a mutant, whatever, beaver in there does not mean that we're going to be, playing Elvin and the Chipmunks here. It's a dark setting. Well, Rifts was always done as bright colors and big and gonzo and all this. I'm like, if you told me that we're playing Aliens basically just with Borg, crazy, Leyline Walker, Burster, type thing, I would be like, holy crap, this is my favorite game.
So when you just look at the color palette and the dark energy on the cover of the original book, to me, it says there's darkness, right? So, and that was why when I wrote the request for the cover for Atlantis and the Demon Seas, I wanted an homage to this. And I think that Aaron J. Riley, the artist, did a kick-ass job, because he actually was a fan of Keith Parkinson as well. And so I said, hey, can you, and he also did this art. This is behind me on the virtual green screen, is the art he did for the cover of the upcoming boxed campaign, Terror on the Dark Frontier.
I have two signed paintings from Keith Parkinson. One's at work, and that's of the Wolfen summoning the skeletons. That's one of my favorite paintings of absolutely all time. And then I have his Kalen and I forget Richard painting up there from the Sword of Truth series.
Well, if you like that Wolfen summoning the skeletons. Kevin's got the original here. If you want to come by the office sometime, he's
Well,
also got the
when I'm
original.
up there in Michigan, I'm making it to when I go up there. So one day I will go up there to visit Heathen Dog again when I can get out of Alabama. Yes, I absolutely plan on coming by, and I will actually don't. If my shirt is this wide when I'm walking out, just don't look under it.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, but to me, for me, Rifts is those more of those things and less of, and people can play it however they want. I'm not trying to tell people. I've heard people say they turn the coalition to this steampunk thing. That's cool. Like, do what you want to do, right? Make it your game. I think that's awesome. But for me,
I'm starting to think more and more it's just how I was exposed to it then, because again, hearing you talk about it, hearing Kevin talk about it, I'm like, actually, Rift sounds pretty awesome now.
Well, and I see the Biv. It's hard for me to track these, but he said you can totally change the feel of Rifts just by moving to a different part of the world. Absolutely. If you play a campaign, and even for instance, you play a campaign in Lannis, or you play a campaign in South America, or you play a campaign in Trax, in Germany, or you play a campaign in England, right? You're gonna have. I think you could have completely different, or the New West. You have completely different experiences.
So that's one of the things that Heathen Dog brought up with Kevin, and Heathen Dog. I still don't think Heathen Dog was wrong. I think he's taken too much of a 1 or 0 on this one. Is Heathen Dog and I both agree on this? I'll get to that super chat in a moment here. Is that we think that one of the best things about Rifts is the fact that I can have an entire campaign set in Texas, right? Lone Star. I can have another one up in Quebec with some glitter boys. I can do all these things. I don't have to go too far. I'm just saying I don't have to go too far. And when that campaign's over, we can start a brand new campaign with brand new characters, have a completely different feel somewhere else. Now, Heathen Dog was kind of corrected by Kevin on this one, although I'm going to stand by it. I don't think that the realms should be mixed and matched. I think if you play in New West, you should be playing New West. You shouldn't bring in all this other stuff because it has its own New West feel. If you're playing in Mexico with all the vampires, stick around in Mexico with the vampires. Don't worry about what's going on in Canada or trying to pull something from Mystic Russia over. It's just, if you want to do Mystic Russia, do Mystic Russia. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong that anybody does that, but I think actually that's kind of an advantage for it, is that you can play all these different settings. You have a lifetime of games in front of you. Right. Just through one setting.
I don't know. I mean, I think Rifts was very much designed so you could move around, but it doesn't mean that you're moving into some place that's equally nice or less dangerous, right? So I had a group of players, my good buddies, and they were participating. I had Juicer Uprising, right? And I had Phase World, and actually, the funny thing was they were playing in the Juicer Uprising campaign, and there's the Valax, I think, aliens. And anyways, they found their secret hideout, and then they got trapped. And so, as a way to let them survive, I let the Valax are these invading aliens, and I let them escape through a portal to Phase World using one of the Valax's ships. They're trying to escape Rift's Earth, right? Or bring a portal for an invasion and stuff. And so, anyways, I let them escape to Phase World. And then it was, oh my gosh, we're completely outgunned by everybody. We need to get our hands on some tech. They did. And then we had, some crazy adventures. And then they wanted to go back to Earth. And they accidentally ended up they got back to Earth, but they ended up back in, actually, I'm mixing up two campaigns, but anyways, they, another campaign, they went to Wormwood, and then they went to Atlantis, right? And Atlantis is very, 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 very dangerous, right? And so, but I enjoyed that, right? Because it's like, well, hey, you need to adapt to this new environment. You need to get the new gear. You need to
see. Now, I've usually seen it done the opposite. Like, oh, I'm using an Atlantis. Well, that's where the Splugorth are, isn't it? If I remember correctly. So maybe that, again, I don't know my riffs.
Well, but that's the thing. Like a lot of stuff from Atlantis, Kevin will put, this is optionally. You could play a conservator as a player character. But really, to me, the conservators are there to tear apart player characters.
Well, right. But what I'm saying is, like, let's use Juicer Uprising. I think that's a good example. Is like, I'm going to play a Juicer at a Juicer Uprising over here. And I'm like, the scope creep in some of those books is just way different. If you want to play a high magic game, I don't think that you should be taking a character out of England and bringing it over to, we'll say, Castle Refuge. For me, that, again, your mileage may vary, and everybody in chat who's yelling at me, that breaks the spirit of the game. I get it. I'm just saying that's how I operate. I just think if I wanted to play with that high magic, that druidic power, I would stay there. If I wanted to play a time travel, I'd just go to Japan. Now, the way you described it, again, going to phase world, first of all, they go to phase world, it's like, we're in space? I thought that wasn't possible. Number one. And then
because these aliens built a spaceship, right? And they were like, what's going on? We got to get out of here. It seems to be a vehicle of some sort, you know?
Right.
And
yeah, no. And I think that, but again,
for a campaign, right? We had finished the plot line. And so in some ways it was as a crescendo to season 2.
Sure.
Right. If that was season 1, this was season 2, and we had more episodes in that season, right?
I guess what I'm not articulating well is I usually see it go the other way. You went and said, okay, now you're outgunned. As I usually see it the other way. The characters are overpowered for what's going on because they're doing the scope creep out of these other books and trying to bring it into
I think
a normal.
Game Master needs to ruthlessly destroy that. And if if you have a campaign idea, you need to sell it to the players, right? I mean, everybody should be playing something they want to play. But if you're the game master, you say we need to do this, you lock it down, right? I had a campaign. This is Savage Rifts, but I mean it's Rifts. But we actually had a campaign where we said no full conversion cyborgs, no landline walkers, no mind melters. We wanted something that was it was set in Texas, right?
Okay.
But we wanted something that was more Mad Max. And
okay.
I mean, I even called, my car that, and the name of his car, right? And the Interceptor. And, so we did. Now my character was a Side Stalker gunslinger, right? But all of the heroes, there was a headhunter, right? There was a guy that was a power pilot, but he wasn't like a glitter boy, right? He had he was,
just the robotic
really one? Yeah, he was just a pilot that he had a bandito sidewinder, Samus. But that he had like killed someone and stolen is what his story was. They're all kind of low life, like anti-heroes.
I really think more people need to hear stuff like this, that hey, game masters, even though the game allows you to do everything, put limits on that match your setting.
I saw something about someone saying they played a campaign where everyone was dog boys doing missions that's too dangerous for everybody else.
And it was perfect. A $5 super chat.
Right. And you could do, I've heard people say this, a noir detective thriller set in Chi-Town in the burbs. You can do that. That's Rifts, right? You go pick up Coalition, war campaign. You can go get the Spectre, the ISS inspector, Internal Security Services inspector, and some nut sets and have a good time, right? I mean, you could do all types of stuff. That's one of the things I think is great about Coalition Manhunters, actually, is it revisits a lot of the themes with Dog Boys and the Manhunters, which are psychic assassins, and the Thought Police in the Coalition. And it really expands upon a lot of those themes, as well as psychic abilities.
I'm definitely getting that book because I'm going to utilize it for the Empire of Humanity and then after the bomb game. I find the Coalition to be a little overpowered for the Empire of Humanity, but it's how I like to see the Empire of Humanity.
Well, and another thing that I've heard one of my buddies said, it's Aaron Burkett. He's one of the writers on Savage Rift stuff. And he he said, if you have Rifts, then every Palladium product is a Rift source book.
Yeah.
Right. So it could be, but the reverse is true.
All right. Are we ready for all the Tomorrow Legion stuff?
Sure. Lay it on.
Here we go. I'm going to just kind of go in the order that I've got here. So hopefully it makes somewhat sense. I'm going to start with the chat. Then I'm going to go with the questions that came up on Discord. So, I was okay with Savage World until they screwed up Rifts. I don't know what that means because how is Rift screwed up? You got to put something in there.
Specificity.
So please tell me you're not going to change the lore. Now this is getting a little closer.
No, I've actually bent over backwards to not change the lore. Now, part of my mandate here is to continually move things forward, right? Titan Robotics, for instance, the whole point of me working on the book is to expand the lore, right? So, but no, I don't have any interest in change. I love the lore, and in fact, I've had a lot of conversations with Kevin about, is this the spirit of this? Does this fit this? So, I'm super dialed in on being. I'm a lore junkie for Rifts. That was when we'd go on family vacations. I would just take Rifts books and I'd reread them.
So I did that
you know,
with Palladium Fantasy books.
the first, I mean, the golden age of Rifts, the first 10 years of Rifts too, like those books, I basically know like the back of my hand. And actually, I still have trouble with the Ultimate Edition. I reference it all the time, like every day for work, and I still have a hard time finding things because in my brain, it's the original, right? The original release.
All right, this is one that's come up a few times. It's actually on my questions list as well, so I won't have to ask it since it's here. Dwarves don't use magic. I know that's a Tomorrow Legion.
Dwarves don't use magic. Well, they do use techno wizardry in Rifts. If you read about Kingsdale and Columbia, for instance, or even Queenston Harbor, dwarves are around and working with stuff like that all the time in Rifts. So I guess that's a dig at the Tomorrow Legion because some dwarves found a castle. And found. Oh, I don't know if anyone knows this, but there is a place like the castle Refuge. There is a castle, a real world castle that someone built there in real life. It's kind of crazy. And so the whole idea behind the lore is that these dwarfs found it and we're like, well, at least we can rebuild this and refortify it and stuff like that. When a lot of the other magic and stuff gets added to the castle, it's not, I mean, unless I'm misreading the Tomorrow Legion or the Game Master's Guide, it's people that they're working with them that are redoing a lot of that. Maybe there's a specific NPC in one of those books, but I don't remember a dwarf that is using magic.
Yeah, that came up a couple of times. So like I said, once in the chat here, I wish I could speak intelligently on it. To be honest, I did read the Tomorrow Legion book when I got it months ago, but as not an aficionado of Rift's lore, I couldn't say what's right and what's wrong. And to be honest, when I look at it, I'd be like, it's Rifts. Why wouldn't? There's probably a dwarf from some other dimension that casts.
Well, I mean, just like the way I see it, and if someone has something specific they want to say, this character or this thing on this, I really, the thing I'm saying is I want to hear details, right? And so one of the things that I'd say is, yeah, I mean, Kingsdale has tons of dwarves and elves, and but those dwarves are in the middle of a lot of people that are using magic. So
apparently the OCCs, RCCs got nerfed. Is that for Savage Rifts?
I don't know what they're talking. Yeah, I mean, it says icon. So the iconic frameworks, there were some people that did think that, and right. And so when I did the 3-month fan feedback period, and with her, literally, you can go see it on the Pinnacle Entertainment Group forums. There were like over 1,000 threads, and I read and answered all of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, kudos to Shane. He paid me to do it. So, but no, I did my best to dial in all those details and make sure that the Leyline Walker, the Mystic, right? Or not the Mystic. Well, there was some stuff to the Mystic, but mostly the Leyline Walker, the Mind Melter. There's a lot of other tweaks and changes to try and bring everything as tightly in as we could with the lore. There were revisions. There was a big, I don't. Damage in Savage Worlds works very differently than damage in hit points based or MDC, SDC based systems, right? It's not just subtractive from a total. It's more like Warhammer 40,000, where you roll to hit your target, then you roll to see if you take the strength of the weapon, you roll to see if it wounded the target's toughness. And so, I did a whole pass on that as well. So a lot of things should be a lot more dialed.
Well, that goes to what we were talking about before, though. The system matters. The setting, the system influences the setting.
It does.
And so a lot of people, again, just to reiterate, will say like Rifts is Rifts is Rifts. It doesn't matter. I can run Rifts in any system. Well, I'm sure you can, but it wouldn't be the same. I mean, I could run it all in D6. I could run it all in.
I mean, if you can't, exactly. You can't. The spells aren't exactly the same, right? It's really weird that I'm seeing people. I've seen this in another comment here, where people saying that they feel like the characters are nerfed, and it's not same scale as Palladium, which is odd because I felt like it was way overpowered. If you compared the level of a first level Cyber Knight to the effectiveness of a first level Cyber Knight in Savage Rifts First Edition, I felt like there was a massive power disparity in Savage Rifts. Same thing for the Techno Wizard, for instance. Techno Wizardry is there's a lot of things that are very powerful in Savage Rifts. And so that's just interesting to hear people say that. And again, I don't know if that's if their experience was the first edition, which is most likely, or not, or how much they've played Savage Worlds. Another thing that can be very difficult is that damage model and feeling like, mega damage and stuff like that is there, but it translates over very differently. So if you're new to Savage Worlds and Savage Rifts, I think it can be more difficult than if you maybe had played Savage Worlds a bit before and then you came to Savage Rifts.
All right. This is something I've got to read off. This was long. I pared it down as much as I could.
Sure.
I've got some deep lore complaints. All right.
Okay.
First one. Greyhammer, founded by the Legion, is a dwarf and casts magic. Okay, we're back to that one. Palladium Fantasy dwarves have forsaken magic for 7,000 years. My answer to this was it's not Palladium Fantasy. What?
It's not Palladium Fantasy. That's the problem. If people make assumptions about stuff like that. So from my understanding, talking with Sean Fannin, I didn't write the initial Tomorrow Legion stuff, right? Is that those dwarves were from his own Shane Tar setting, where dwarves are master runesmiths and can wield magic in, I think, mechanicalistic ways like that. So for him, that's actually probably a nod to his own personal creation. And guess what? If I created my own fantasy setting, I'd probably do something like that too. But yeah, that doesn't mean that they're Palladium. They're not the dwarves of Castle Refuge. If that might help people out a lot, is the dwarves of Castle Refuge are short humans from another dimension that is not Palladium Fantasy. Let's put it that way.
There we go. Somebody clip that. Put that out there. The only member that seems to fit Rift setting is the Detox Juicer Head of Education. Somebody successfully detox? That's a hard role to make. After that, it's Elf, and Elf-like. No other characters fit Rifts. Not a single one is, what the hell is a Grackletooth or a Broadkill? I don't know what those are, but I'm guessing they're Rifts monsters or something.
So yeah, Broadkill or Rifts monsters, Grackletooth or Rift monsters, or Rifts. It's a RCC, a race. I mean, there's nothing objective there. That's all subjective. I don't feel like I have to answer subjective. Okay. I mean, if you want to talk to me about lore, if you want to literally talk to me about this line of the lore is wrong, or this is strong, this, like, the physical strength of this isn't reflected well in Savage Rifts or something, we can have a conversation. But if it's just subjective, I don't like it, and I'm not going to tell you any details, that's not right. Lore, right? And yeah, it does feel a little different because Savage Worlds is a completely different game system. It has a completely different model of attributes, damage, all types of stuff. So powers, how you use powers, I mean, completely different. But yeah, I mean, that's all very subjective. But if you want to come at me and tell me where we got lore wrong, I'd be happy to hear it. And I'll change the file while we're on stream, so that the next time that's printed or a PDF is updated, it will be fixed. I'm serious.
Dang it, I wish I knew Rift's lore, because I'd find the one where. No. All right. So listing Aaron Tarn as the head dragon guy of Laszlo is quote unquote honorary members in consulting position. You know what? I'm not finishing. Sorry.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm not finishing that one because I guess apparently didn't read what the end of that was. A teal government structure lacks the plans. Okay. That's dumb too.
Well, at least you said it.
Well, I've tried. So Heathen Dog is, like I said, the Rifts guy. So I had to pull these at the last second here. Feel like, well, these are the questions that came up.
If we want to do a Rifts lore stream, I'll do it. You know, I anything to put my word out there. And yep. Kevin's, the thing is I've discussed all of this stuff with Kevin too. Mm-hmm. People seem to forget that he approved all of it.
This is actually one that did interesting.
It's weird is he likes, like I said, he likes the Tomorrow Legion. He wants it in Palladium. So
well, and just so everybody in chat knows, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because you guys asked it. This is not for my benefit. This is for your benefit, and he's willing to answer them. So let's clear the air with this stuff.
If it's subjective, it's hard for me to answer that. You're like, I don't like it. I don't know why. So, but if you can tell me what you feel is wrong,
it's one of the reasons I love Phase World.
Wolf and our cops and I love those. What are the Quatoria? They're amazing. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but Wolfen is an anthropomorphic animal, right? It's my favorite race to play in Palladium Fantasy.
I think they're really interesting as compared to like gnolls, because they're not hyenas, they're wolves, they're pack hunters, they're team members, they're smart, they're cunning. That's why I think the things that Kevin and I were discussing this the other day. It's one of the things I think is really cool about Wolfen. Anyways.
Well, they're also pretty much subjectively the only good guys too. All right, let's see. So,
Hey, Peter.
How do I want to ask this? I'll put that on the
however
screen.
you want.
So Castle Refuge is near coalition territory. So if they're within the territories, what happens when they recruit from a town that the coalition states have claimed? What are they going to do if the towns that don't want anything to do with them?
Well, if the
I think
towns
it's up to the game master, isn't it?
It is up to the game master. I mean, it's kind of a starting point. So so Castle Refuge A does not invade coalition territory, which is very clearly marked on the Rifts for Savage Worlds map set, the North America map, which is like hardcore Rifts lore. Just put it that way. I mean, even down to, you know, the rivers chosen for borders of actual displayed control zones, right? So if you go over there, yeah, I mean, Castle Refuge is not going to try and recruit people from within the shaded area of CS El Dorado, south of, well, I forget the name of that river right now, or, you know, south of CS Missouri's line there.
Is it the Buffalo River?
Guess, yeah, and the thing is Castle Refuge doesn't really actively go out and recruit. People come to Castle Refuge because of you know, Aaron Tarn and Sir Coke putting out, Lord Coke putting out the call for heroes. So
could it be one of those things that you talked about before where there's a mistake, like, you know, it talks about, oh, the CS is in part of Missouri and they think it's like all the way down here, like they're next door neighbors?
I think people get confused with that because, you know, if you don't have a very clear map, that can sound very confusing. That's they're inside Missouri. Well, so is Kingsdale, right? But you know what happens. See, so the thing is, you have to understand the Tomorrow Legion is essentially an aid organization put together by the Cyber Knights. So unless you start gunning down coalition troops, your characters are going to be seen as Cyber Knight adjacent, right? Or, you know, one of those wandering bands of heroes. Now, obviously, if players want to do certain things, and I will say that some of the original adventures written for Savage Rifts in the first edition did directly pit the heroes against the coalition. And that sets a certain tone for your campaign. But in, you know, when I run it, that's a big decision for the players. Do they, you know, one of the really great introductory adventures written by Ross Watson is called the Garnet Town Gambit. There's a town in the northern Arkansas region that the coalition is trying to court and the Federation of Magic is trying to court, and the Tomorrow Legion is trying, well, they get involved and they're trying to court them as well. And so depending on how but you're not like just walking in and everybody shooting, right? So how you what the players decide in the campaign, that is one of the core conceits of Rifts for Savage Worlds, is how do your player group approach things, because the Tomorrow Legion is actually mostly an army and militia that defends Castle Refuge and protects caravans of refugees coming in to Castle Refuge and Refuge City. But most of the players play what are called special exploratory teams or sets. And so you are like a kind of like a trusted special forces team that might even be sent to another continent, right, to do something, or to try and establish relations. Like, for instance, in Atlantis and the Demon Seas, there's an adventure where you establish relations with Tritonia and the New Navy. There's another one where you're establishing relations with Lemuria, right? Just some sort of dialogue and discussion. And so that's a big part. It's big adventure, but in some ways it's almost like Star Trek in that way, in that you're beyond the borders of the Federation, right? You're trying to gather allies and, you know, act as, you know, sometimes making these moral decisions when there's no other actors around.
So in a way, kind of like Babylon 5 or Deep Space Nine, like you're there, you're part of that series, I guess you'd say, that IP, but you're pretty much by yourself.
Yeah, you're out in the fringes, right? And now I've played, one of my buddies ran it and it was fun, where we were near Castle Refuge a lot, and a lot of people enjoy doing that, and that's cool, right? But those are you're probably not going to be running into much coalition or Federation of Magic unless, you know, because they don't control that territory, unless you run into a random patrol or something.
Okay. I'm skipping the rest of his questions except for one more that's related to that one, which is So it seems that they're within missile range of coalition states and passing out leaflets about their own form of government. That's just taunting to be blasted.
I don't know about any leaflets. Can you give me the reference and page number on that? And yeah, so is Kingsdale. So is the Pecos Empire. So is Houston. So is Merktown. So is New Laszlo. They're everybody in North America. So are the Zytikic. They're all within missile range of the coalition.
Fair, yeah.
I mean, why doesn't the coalition firebomb everything they can?
Well, didn't it try that in Quebec?
Well, yeah, right. I mean, they really bit off more than they can chew, and they pulled the classic military blunder of fighting an Eastern Front and Western Front war.
Okay. An Aaron Tarn journal book would be really useful.
That would be cool.
Indigo Dragon, you have now been commissioned to write it. And all right, this is the last one I'm going to ask on this because honestly, I don't think it's a good interview just to have Sean on the defensive all the time, especially since I can't talk to much of this. But the last one is I hope Sean stops trying to make riffs have this white knight BS and stop putting pro-gay and Marxist crap. Okay, I didn't see that last part. I apologize.
No. Let me talk to this. Like, again, you can make accusations, but unless you're specific, I really don't know what you're talking about, and I don't feel like there's been anything weird or anything that would fit that description in Palladium, in my opinion. People obviously have all types of opinions right now, but
screen. May travel continents have their own danger challenge there. See.
Yes. So if you check out then this is for Savage Riffs, but Peter, you could use it. The thing is, anything I tell you about it that's in Savage Riffs, you can also use in Palladium Riffs, right? Just go look up the stat entries for the Palladium thing instead of the Savage thing. But yeah, I think that you could really use some of the long distance travel rules in the Tomorrow Legion field manual that I wrote that section. And I think I've used them. I have friends that use them. We get a lot of mileage out of those for challenges and encounters. Of course, Palladium books usually have tons and tons of great, tables that you can roll on, right, and stuff like that. Oh, okay. And then the other thing is we are doing in the Savage Rifts world books, each section of the world should have they all do have their own encounter tables. And with Terror on the Dark Frontier, we're also adding non-combat like obstacles, friendlies or allies, and maybe even treasure tables as well for each section of the coalition frontier or the new frontier that is kind of between the coalition borders and the Colorado barony and the New West.
All right, well, you have graced us with 3.5 hours so far, which I very much appreciate.
Good.
So I would like to finish this off with however long it takes in just kind of talking about the future now in terms of just not specific product, but just ways you would like to take riffs in a general level, Palladium books, just kind of wrap everything up here. I know we talked about some of this before, but what can fans hope for in the future? Again, without being specific, because I understand that the issues with that. Like, what can we get excited for coming up?
Well, first off, the big thing that that Kevin and I are really devoted to is getting you the big books that, it's crazy from how I put this, just to see the art and the cover painting and, go through the manuscript that we have for Antarctica. And that was a year ago. Blew my mind. Right. And there are 8 books like that. Right. So, and there's about 4 more that are approaching that level. So the big thing for me that I'm super excited about in the near future is getting you the stuff that has been announced and has been promised, and that these are major products. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions, right? But a lot of this stuff is really solid, and we really want to get it out there to you. And finishing up, like, for instance, again, we don't have like specific release dates or anything, but if you go and you look at the Rifter, we're talking about things like Beyond the Supernatural, what's coming after the creature feature, right? and Kevin and I really think that it's important to get Beyond Arcanum and Tomes Grotesque out there. Let me see. Well, and one of the things I'm excited about is, hey, the Rifter's back, right? And we're doing it every year. And so, this is a chance, there was that question about getting paid to do writing or art, right? And then if stuff that's good and that makes it into the Rifter, we'll sometimes make it into a world book or an official book down the road as well. So like there's some material from like Rifter 4 that is going to be in our Titan Robotics. So I think that's all really exciting. Beyond that, we are listening and we are paying attention. We appreciate everything. Starter sets, box sets, introductory adventures, virtual tabletop support, updates to how information is presented to make it more usable or readable, or all these different types of things are things that are definitely in the forefront of our minds, and we want to get to it as well. So I think that, for Savage Rifts fans, they're a little spoiled now because for the past, couple of years, they've been getting tons of support for Savage Rifts. And now, right, for instance, with the Titan Robotics, when we do the Kickstarter, we're adding an offering where if you back that Kickstarter, you're also going to get the Savage Rifts conversion for the stuff in Titan Robotics, so you can immediately use it with Savage Rifts. So that's really cool that I was able to talk to Kevin, talk to Shane, and they're both like, great, that sounds awesome. And we're doing our best to support as many fans as we can. The other thing is, I'd say, don't forget all the products that are out there that are really great. Let me show you, we have a massive pawn set for Savage Rifts, but these are great paper miniatures that you can put on your tabletop.
I'm gonna zoom you in here.
Games. Right. So we've got everything from a hatchling dragon and a tattooed ogre.
See, and that's more my style because I don't do miniatures because I'm too theater of the mind, but I do use standees.
Cyber Knight. So the nice thing with these is, if you really are into minis, I totally get it. Oh, Coalition Mark V APC seen from top down, so you can put it on your tabletop. But this is one of the ways that I'm hoping we can support all Rifts players, and all Rifts players can enjoy it, and regardless of what the system you want to use. The other thing that is really cool, I think some fans will really enjoy, is besides the world maps, which I think a lot of people have told me they really enjoy, and Kevin gets a lot of positive feedback on that as well from Palladium players.
Because we're making him open stuff, people.
Yeah, I can't remember where I put my other one. I have a few of these, but some people might think this is pretty cool. It is a map. Can you see that? Is that? It's probably not going to work very well with my.
Yeah, the green screen is.
Let me see if I can turn that off real quick.
We're going to see his messy bedroom now.
No, I'm at work. Background.
I thought you lived at work. All right.
So,
what is that?
So this is the entrance to an Atlantean temple, and the opposite side is the Atlantean temple.
Okay.
To scale, to lore, stuff like that. We have a ruined city map. Ruined cities are really hard to find for tabletop gaming. So we have one of those. So I'm hoping that those things are things that everybody can enjoy. And so, because the funny thing is, those actually take a lot of time from me and Kevin to get all the art approvals done and the art requests done and all that kind of stuff. So, that's something that, for instance, Pinnacle wanted to do, so we did it. But I feel like it supports the whole hobby. But yeah, those are some of the big things to be excited about. I think the Kickstarter, the Titan Robotics Kickstarter coming up in a couple weeks is going to be something that I hope everybody will support us with, because that can really make a huge difference for us moving forward, and making sure that we can keep again, print costs as low as possible so that we don't have to raise prices. It's really rough out there right now. So, but yeah, those are the big things. Is there anything else that you think I'd
just pop up a couple more questions here? Are you more favoring online community content like fan pages, fan-made docs, open source project, and wikis? Okay, and Mar Hockman posted a couple of times. Are you in favor of wiki supplied documents?
So here's the deal. Like, don't reprint our stuff online, please. That goes for Pinnacle or Palladium. That goes for game. I mean, no one wants their IP
Right.
reprinted online, right? Fan conversions and stuff is fine, but that's, I think, if people, Kevin has come down on things before. A lot of times he's asking his lawyer, what do I do? Right. And so, it's not because he likes to be litigious or anything like that.
You have to protect your IP though.
Well, right. Well, if I go write a book and then it's on someone's website because they copied and pasted it into it, or even took hours and hours and days to program it in, I'm still not happy. I wrote that book. You should buy my book. It's available as PDF too. It has a virtual tabletop support that's official right now. If you're doing something for your own use, right, that's totally fine. But it's if this stuff happens, then how are we going to continue making anything, right? So please help us out. And now at the same time, I'm totally down for community centered content. I am on the Savage Rifts forums on Pinnacle Entertainment Group's website. I read just about everything there. I answer all the official Q&A. The Savage Rifts Facebook group is a great community to join if you want to talk about Rifts. Actually, Peter Picaro, who's joined the conversation, he's one of the moderators there. He doesn't even play using the Savage World system. He just likes Rifts. He's just a supporter and a fan. And that's a really great positive community. We do have the Palladium message boards, another fan group that you can go to. And they also run Palladium Rifts, but savagerifts.com. There are boards and play-by-post, and they also organize online games. So those are a lot of ways that you can get involved and support, especially for Rifts fans, on that level. But the same kind of goes for everything else. I don't, I've heard people say, websites with SRDs of different things, and that's not really a direction I'm looking to move right now for stuff. But part of that's too, because then are you giving away your core product for free? Right. And some people might say, oh, that makes sense. Well, yeah, I'm glad it makes sense to you, but show me the dollars and cents of the company that you run that is successful with that model. Right.
Oh, that's why a lot of people will say things. That's one of the reasons why, one of the game systems I follow is I really like the Free League system. Year Zero and so forth. And a lot of their products can have a quick start. And that's one of the reasons why we mentioned quick start before. So I can go right now and download a Coriolis quick start or a Forbidden Lands quick start for free. It's not going to give me the entire game, but it's going to give me enough to know, like, this is a game I want to invest. I want to buy the full product of. So there is some benefit there for reaching out, because I know a lot of gamers are poor, but at the same time, man, I just say I know a lot of people with a lot of PDFs that they shouldn't have, which is one of the reasons that makes me hesitant to have PDFs. It's to me, it's tough on the business side of it when you're thinking like, okay, how many sales are these are legit sales, and how many am I just going to have to suck up? Like I put a module out there. It was for Forbidden Lands, and I put it out there for free just to see how
Forbidden Lands.
Well, it's a starter model. So if you already know how to play, my module probably won't help you, because it's meant to teach people how to play the game and how to game master it. I put it out there for free or pay what you want. I got over 100 downloads. Only one person paid.
Right.
And that person paid half of what I'm selling for now. Now I'm not complaining. Look, I put it out there for that, right? I can't complain about people saying no, but that comes down to, if you remember the Trove, how many things did people get off the Trove? Like,
right. And I'm seeing some of the comments from Mar Hockman. I mean, I think that was his original question as well. Different ideas like paid website access, more cross links and documents. Those are all things that definitely we have in mind. And some of this is getting the momentum and the monies to be able to do things like that, right?
So, well, it's good for somebody like you who's definitely younger than me to come in there, because I still want my physical book. I don't even allow phones or tablets on my table. Well, that's how I do my character. No, it's not. You do your character in a paper because I'm going to walk over and mark on it sometimes, whatever. So there's a lot of this new stuff like, get off my lawn. But at the same time, you're a business. The hobby is evolving. We have to look at that in that fashion, obviously at your own pace, not at our pace, right? But those are things to definitely consider going forward that I might not be interested in, but you might get a whole new fan base in because of that.
No, and I understand that. And just to let people in on kind of the strategic side here. I mean, I think this is important. Kevin and I, again, we really want to fulfill a lot of promises, but we are also cognizant that just like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Robotech brought a lot of us into the hobby, right? And into the Palladium Books Megaverse. What are the opportunities that we can make or capitalize on? But, sometimes something comes down the road and you can capitalize on it, right? But sometimes you need to make your own opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever that is, we do want to make sure that the Palladium, legacy and the system and all these things are going to be there for generations to come. Kevin and I both are really passionate about that. And so we are working to make that happen. But a lot of times, like I said, some of the core things is, hey, we need to circle back down. I've had people ask about, what about video games? What about movies? What about this TV shows? Well, that's not what we do, right? And there are people that we could be spending all our time shopping around Hollywood and video game studios and calling them up. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Would you want to do a Rifts game?
Run into the Gary Gygax problem of Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, but the thing is like, that's not our core product. Our core product is Palladium Books, right? And so we want to put out books, and the more successful we are with that, the more eyeballs we're going to get and offers from other people. So that's kind of our focus, just again, so that people can understand our larger strategy is to, double down on the stuff that we're really good at.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to put up one more comment, and then I think we can end it because I don't want to waste any more of your time. If you would do me a favor, though, if you can hang on after the fact, after I close out the show, folks, sure. There isn't going to be a segment 3 today. We're not going to do the viewer call-ins. We've gone pretty long for today. As Omen said, and this is like the last comment I'm going to put up here, Sean's very generous with his time to absolutely, both Kevin and Sean, when Kevin was here, have been amazingly generous with his time. This 3 hours, maybe it's because I'm used to doing 8-hour streams, but I'm like, really? We're almost pushing 4 hours now. Are you kidding me? It does not feel like it to me. So I don't think we asked anything too crazy tough, but you were willing to take on the questions that were like, hey, what's going on with this? At the same time, you told us what's going on in the future. I'm very appreciative of that. I kind of think that, my side of this has been a little more chaotic than I wanted it to be, but you were great having on here. So
please say hi to Heathen Dog. I'm sorry that we weren't able to chat and I didn't get to meet him today. But if people want to come back and your community wants to get together a bunch of lore questions. Now, if there are like chapter and verse type specific, I see this issue, but it sounds like some of it just comes down to the dwarves in Castle Refuge aren't from Palladium Fantasy, right? Sure. Right. Simple. It's very different, right? They have not forsaken magic after their war with the elves, right? So it's very different background, right? If you understand the borders of things. But yeah, if people come in and they're like, hey, this is wrong, I'm happy to make any updates to correct the lore as much as possible in any Savage Rifts products to make sure that it's 100% true to the Palladium Rifts lore. Now, the games do feel very different. I totally respect anybody who likes to play with one system or the other, or do anything they want in their own personal game,
Like I said, for me, that assuages a lot of my problems because, again, when I'm I do a lot of arguing. When I'm arguing with people, my big thing is, like I said, people will say, "Oh, I can do any game in any system." And I'm like, it's not the same game. It's just, yes, it's the same thing. Like, no, I'm sorry, but the new Free League Twilight 2000 is not the same as the old Twilight 2000. It plays differently. It feels differently. Now, do I like them both? Absolutely. And you can like them both. Right. But I'm usually going to be the person that leans towards, especially if it's still in print, I'm going to lean towards the original. I don't want to play Symbaroum in the 5e construct. I don't want to play Rifts in the Savage Worlds construct. At the same time, I'm not, by saying that, hey, we understand that they play differently, by not trying to say they're both the same thing or this one's taking over that one. I think everybody now has just choices to make. I'm a Savage Worlds fan. I'm going to play Rifts and Savage Worlds. I'm a Palladium fan. I'm going to continue to play Rifts and Palladium, and everybody can have fun. Nobody's trying to take over anybody else.
I do both, right? I have a great time, and it feels very different to me. And, part of that's just how I run a game, right? Is very different. For especially when I run Palladium Rifts. But yeah, I just hope that everybody understands, I'm a Palladium fan. I know there's a lot of worries about the whole Savage Worlds thing, and please just tell your friends, post online. Just if you see something, just let people know, like, no, we're not going to do Savage Worlds everything. Palladium's not being bought out. Kevin's not going away, right? And even if he wasn't here, even once that torch is passed, that's not the intention at all, right? I love the Palladium system. I grew up with the Palladium system. I want the Palladium system to be the best it can be. I want the Palladium books and reference material and everything associated with it to be as top-notch and high quality as we can make it. So I appreciate everyone's patience and support as Kevin and I work really hard to make these, and the rest of the team here, right? Alex Marcinizan, Wayne Smith, even Crystal Willard, right? She's in the warehouse, but that's so important because that means that we don't have to be in the warehouse, right?
And people get their products, right?
People get their products. She's smart. She's taking care of problems. So she's helping with customer support, right? So all these people are a great part of everything. So again, we really appreciate your support, and we are excited about the future as well. And we are listening. It's just a slight shift in policy to be, play our cards a little closer to the chest as we approach our future releases.
Any final shout outs you want to give to either links or books or something that people can look at, or if you think you've announced everything that you need to? Or
the big thing I would ask everybody to do, if you haven't, is go sign up on palladiumbooks.com for the weekly update. That is straight from Kevin every week. He puts a lot of time and effort into it. And I think it's worth it, right? And it's just, you can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, right? And we're posting them there as well. And that's just a great place to keep track of everything. The other big thing is I don't have the exact announced date, but we are planning the Titan Robotics Kickstarter will be happening this month. So stay tuned. Follow on those sites, and we can get you that information as soon as it's available. The other thing I will say is that Beyond the Supernatural Creature feature, we're looking to get it printed and delivered in November sometime. Oh, thank you so much. So again, this is, you can keep track of everything we're doing every week. So keep your eyes open for that, because that's coming as soon as we can get it. At your local game shops, ask about Palladium Books. We found that if they keep Palladium Books in stock, they will sell. And that's been a really great thing. We just had a lot of great feedback at the Alliance, the Alliance trade show. For Alliance is a big distributor that works with Palladium.
Look at how long this is, guys. This isn't like a 5-word email with a book in it.
No, and that's another thing. We relaunched the entire weapons and weapons series of books and reference.
I have a quibble with that. All the other Palladium books in my repertoire are 8.5 by 11. I get the exotic one, and it's the wrong size, and I.
Oh well, all the new ones are that size. The reprints are all that size. Sorry, buddy. Except for the Compendium of Modern Weapons, that's still 8.5 by 11. So, but anyways, yeah, this is the weekly update. But yeah, just stay tuned, and we just really appreciate all of your support. And also, just on the Savage Worlds, the Savage Rift side, I hope that you have a good time with the maps that you can purchase from Pinnacle. We have the upcoming Kickstarter for that as well down the road, not too far into the future. I'm not allowed to speak dates. That's a Pinnacle, right? That's a Pinnacle policy that I think is very shrewd. But yeah, that will be coming soon. And I the other thing I'll say there is the Lands of a Thousand Islands is going to be really cool, because that is Kevin and I worked together. South America 1 and 2 by Palladium Books were released almost 30 years ago. And they were set in 102, 103 PA. Well, the new Land of a Thousand Island book is going to be set in 109 PA. So it has all the timeline and lore updates for all the factions in South America. And that's pretty dope, I think. Again, a lot of Rift's lore files really enjoy Empires of Humanity as well as Atlantis and the Demon Seas because they have some smaller updates like that. But yeah, that other one's crazy. So anyways, yeah, that's all the stuff coming up.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you very much for being here. We'll talk, see if maybe we can get you and Kevin back in December if everybody's healthy, because apparently you guys like to decide to get sick during that time or something. But we've talked about possibly having you guys back then. That'd be great.
Yeah, just let us know. Kevin and I would love. He enjoyed his interview. I've enjoyed the chat. I've enjoyed being to speak directly to the fans. Again, appreciate everything. We'd love to come on together.
And folks that were worried about this, I've gotten Discord messages and I've had messages in chat. This video is going to go private for a short time. I'm not going to edit it. I know members, sorry. I know you guys pay for special stuff, but this is beginning to end. I'm not gonna hack anything off of this. There's no segment 3 that goes private or anything like that. I'm just gonna update all the annotations of it, and then it's gonna go right back on YouTube, public and live. It's not gonna be chopped up or anything other than if I make some shorts or something out of it. So nobody's going to miss anything from beginning to end. You're all going to get it. Yes, I've made that decision. I understand that some people think it should go members only, or I should only do certain parts of it. I'm not going to do that because I don't think that's fair. I'll do something specific for members in a different way at some point in the future. So with that, I want to thank Sean one last time for being here. If you guys in chat can quickly type in a thank you to him as well, because he deserves it. He was here for a long time, and it's been an awesome conversation. I got 100 more things I could talk about, different things we can ask. Tell him about my Air Force career. You can tell me about his Air Force career, make me feel bad about mine.
I could have chatted for an hour about the Air Force, yeah, probably.
Right? I mean, it takes me an hour just to tell you 2 incidences I had in the Air Force, like why I'm not a linguist. And anyway, but yeah, and chat, you guys were generally respectful, so thank you very much, because I know how you can get. And
thank you guys.
With that, I'm going to end the broadcast, and I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.